Welcome back.
Hello, comrades. I know this is another topic about the disabled, but I feel like these topics aren't discussed enough, considering the fact that the disabled are a permanent underclass and we suffer
We're treated like
classism.
third-class citizens. That's the way an
Yeah,
old lady put it to me the other day. An old Tasmanian woman. She said, "We're treated as third-class citizens. Not even seen human-wise." It's one of the things that gives us a relationship with colonized people who get an even worse treatment than us, and then colonized disabled people are some of the most oppressed people you'll ever find in the world.
yeah, and okay, I'm just gonna say this: whatever classism I suffer from is nowhere near as bad as someone that's indigenous or black or yeah.
We have common relationships, though. For one, eugenics. Actually, in the modern day, eugenics is used more against the disabled than it is against colonized people in the first world, at least. But that's here or there because, I mean, eugenicism has now been hidden in language that doesn't say eugenics, and they'll deny that they like eugenics. It's just vocabulary for the capitalist system. It sort of rolls on that system of eugenic thunk,
Well,
ingrained itself.
there's
Darwinism.
multiple ways they do eugenics, like against the disabled. Like get basic. I'm going by my country. Like being able to choose between marriage or medical benefits, or marriage or benefits in general.
How
Like you can literally
commercialized
lose your
marriage is
benefits
in
if you get
America
married
is
in certain
ridiculous.
states.
Marriage is a profit thing in America. Like it fucking there's no way to settle a marriage without it costing people. Like even if you and the person you're breaking up with are like on good terms, you still got to fork out thousands of pounds. You still got to take it to court and deal with the legal document. You can't just sign a thing and it's done. You gotta you gotta actually deal with the situation and spend a lot of money. It's commercialized. Um, uh, all the decrees of marriage are not only commercialized but centered around a very patriarchal format.
I'm against the very concept of marriage, actually, but that's a topic for a different time because
Engels
the
moment.
the reason why I bring this up, classism, is as you guys may or may not know. I'll just make this short for those who don't know what's going on with the Burger King man.
Burger King.
Caleb Maupin said some really disgusting shit against the lumpen, and considering the fact that the disabled are lumpen overwhelmingly, I take offense to this because I don't like to be portrayed as some like gangster or thug or criminal by some aristocrat that's never experienced what the disabled has experienced, and
Also,
especially
we
being
don't call
poor.
them gangs. We don't call them gangs. They're called organizations. Like in the lumpen, when they organize, they're organizations. Even if they're doing things that are wrong, they're organizations. Gangs are a labor aristocrat, petty bourgeois. Sorry, petty bourgeois thing. I mean, the differences are fucking the craze. Do the craze come to you are like the Crips and the Bloods? Because the Crips and the Bloods are a completely different kettle of fish to the craze. The craze started off petty bourgeois and became very bourgeois. Same with pretty much every gangster. Gangster was a London thing that then spread over to America. Or
Everything
maybe
the
it started in mainland Europe. I don't know, but they're literally using terms that were slurs for petty bourgeois crime business to associate to lumpen proletarian people. And he was saying gangsters with this really weird twang fucking voice he started putting on, which reminds me of the funny voices that Americans put on to mimic black people. They go,
yeah, totally not
gangsters,
racist.
gangsters. Like he's really overemphasizing his voice in a way that is just really distasteful.
I
And
find that the fact that he even brings up fucking Fred Hampton makes me fucking angry.
Fred
And
Hampton was a proletarian.
yeah,
So the lumpen proletariat struggle was a middle class deviancy, then why the fuck was Fred Hampton championing that shit? Why was Huey P. Newton championing that shit? Why was Kwame Ture championing that shit?
Yeah, it's like it makes me sick how he fucking bastardizes the fucking Black Panthers, their fucking legacy by fucking disrespecting what they stood for. They were completely for the lumpen. Completely. They weren't against the lumpen.
Do you know what's interesting? Do you know what killed the Panthers? I'll give you a hint. It wasn't the lumpen. It was the petty bourgeois elements. Kwame Ture criticized them for this in the 80s and the 90s when they were falling to pieces. Petty bourgeois tendencies, petty bourgeois radicalism, and it took over the party. You can't organize a struggle with the proletariat when that happens. No more than the lumpen. Like the disconnect gets too large. The petty bourgeoisie and their interests have no place in the leadership of revolution. Not one.
Everything Caleb Maupin says about the lumpen is self-projection. Considering the labor aristocracy, the people of Caleb's class are the first line of defense for fascism. I mean, who are the first people to support Mussolini and Hitler? I'll give you a hint. It was not the lumpen. It was actually the middle class that supported them first.
And then when they started to get traction amongst the labor aristocracy, they got a backing from a bourgeois clique seeking to use the current events and the rising qualms and struggles of the petty bourgeoisie to push their aims through the system. It is quite an interesting thing that all these things come from the top, and that, Hitler was petty bourgeois, Mussolini was petty bourgeois, Mosley petty bourgeois, fucking go all the way over to fucking Chile and what's his name, dickhead, that China supported, petty bourgeois. Pinochet, that's the fucking one. I'm not very good with names. I forget my mates' names sometimes. But nevertheless, we see this as a petty bourgeois tendency. And when Marxists decay into these petty bourgeois tendencies, they adopt the tendencies of fascists, typically. I mean, it's always been the old idiom. A Marxist will typically always end up falling into fascism before they fall into liberalism.
Like here's another thing that who are the people that supported Thatcher and Reagan? Now, I could say for sure because I know somewhat about Reagan. It was the middle class that were the loudest supporters of Reagan, and the middle class were the loudest supporters of Thatcher.
Yep.
It's like
Working
everything.
Hated Thatcher every inch she walked.
Like Caleb, everything you say about the lumpen applies to your class. Every time there's a movement to fight for change, it's your class that always co-opts any sort of revolutionary movement and kills it. The petty bourgeoisie is where radical movements die. Like this, whatever weird cult he's pushing, like the Karen Mansfield shit. It's like that is a whole can of worms I'm not discussing here because that can be its own video. But what does this have to do with classism against disabled, you may ask? Because according to Caleb, guys, we are criminals. The disabled, we're criminals. We will support fascists against the working class. We're leeches. We are actually hurting the working class.
Oh, that we want to destroy them as well. Like we've got some meticulous mad plan because he said that before as well. Like, here's the thing. Why? This isn't just a Caleb thing. This actually appears a lot in first world. I'm going to use quotation MLs because I know decent MLs that ain't like this, but you know what I mean? Like wagwan, like it fucking to turn around and just go, oh, yeah, the lumpen proletariat. Not only are they D-class and they're all just this hodgepodge of all these different classes, which makes no sense. How are they A, D-class if they're a hodgepodge of different classes? That would just sound like class collaborationism. And B, why would you use the term proletariat? Was Marx smoking some fucking danking fucking skunk that time when he was writing that piece? Actually, he was an alcoholic, so I don't know how pissed he was when he was writing it. But nonetheless, bit cheeky to call them all vagabonds and drug addicts while you're living off the bank of Engels and drinking yourself fucking silly. And they'll follow the quotes from Marx. They'll follow some quotes from Lenin. They'll ignore Mao. They'll ignore Huey P. Newton. They'll ignore Franz Fanon.
Like, okay, here's the thing. I don't fucking care what Marx had to say about the lumpen. Here's why. Marx is someone called a human being, and human beings are capable of being wrong.
Jesus Christ. You can't be
Shocker.
dropping bombs like that on YouTube.
Karl Marx was wrong about the lumpen. Anyone that says otherwise, it's like, what the fuck are you smoking? So to say that that disenfranchised workers, people that are disabled and they have no say in the matter. Because here's the thing. The only reason my disability is what it is because when I was a child, I was neglected by the public education system. I didn't learn as fast as the other kids. Rather than actually try to help me learn, they just threw me off with a bunch of kids that were not as high functioning as I was.
Yeah,
but I was labeled as mentally retarded.
Oh, sorry.
And as a result, it took me many years to basically build my self-esteem because I had no self-esteem because the school system destroyed it. And by the time I did, the disability that I had just got worse. If this were a socialist society, I'd be able to function.
I gotta say though, and a lot of props to you in this. Like, the thing is you're not a slow learner. You will learn like most Asperger's do. You're an experience-based learner. You learn better when you are shown something or engaged with something rather than just being told. Being told is almost sort of, and not in the sense of someone descriptively explaining someone. I'm not talking about having a discussion. I'm all about classroom-style environments. You're just told in this very quick, snappy manner. There's no time for you to break everything down because I've been in trouble for this. Like the when you're dealing with it as an autistic person, you want to ask someone at the end of every statement to clarify, and you also have things to want to pipe up. So those environments become very conflictive. You're focusing more on trying to stay quiet and listen than you are on actually being able to hear what's going on. When you're in an environment where you actually engage more with the medium that you're doing, you're more able to open up and engage with the learning that's going on. I mean, this is actually just because of hypersensitivity, funnily enough, and because ADHD causes the problem with the actual in-house learning and being able to sit and focus. That's what gets the focus problem going, where you can't sit and listen to someone, or you can't read something without having to pipe in all the time because of ADHD. But I don't know if anyone can notice I have. But on the Asperger's side of things, there's also shit, I had it in my head and I've just forgotten it. Oh yeah, so experience-based learning. So with hypersensitivity in autistic people, that goes a lot of ways. It's not just we feel more, we experience things at a higher sensitivity. I hope people know what the senses are and what they do, and I don't have to explain that. Because I hate to sound like Caleb Maupin and being condescending, but I shouldn't have to explain what the senses are and that they are how we experience. Therefore, hypersensitivity increases the rate at which you experience stuff. For example, autistic people who go through the same amount of trauma that would cause a neurotypical person of the same health, PTSD, would cause the neurodivergent person PTSD and manic depression because of the hypersensitivity to stimuli. This is quite indicative of the way we operate because actually with all people, experience-based learning is the best fucking learning because it is the best way to teach someone. As my favorite Mal quote is, as I say it all the fucking time, and I must be driving people up the wall with it to the point where it's just going to becoming my own fucking thing because I've said it that much. Experience is the only pathway to genuine knowledge. And on which we operate through that experience. It's how we drive ourselves forward. And I will say the one thing, because I did say I wanted to give props, is the thing I really want to give props to. You were put in a nasty disadvantage because of the way they treated you in regards to operating with things like literature and stuff. Like, not going to go in for, I'm not going to try and, all respect to you on that. I know my mate's dad, he was in hospital a lot and he didn't learn how to read until he was 13.
I
He's a
learned how to
truck
read
driver,
until
and
I
he's a
was
fucking hard-working truck driver, bastard fucking hard worker, and he's one of my favorite people to engage with. And he's autistic. He's 50 something, 60 something now, I think. But I haven't seen him for a while.
I didn't know how to read until I was like 12 or 13. I don't remember the exact age, but it's still a long fucking ass time that it took me to learn how to read.
You
And
can read better than me now. Like
that
by far.
that could have been avoided had the schools treated me as a human being and not as some stupid retarded kid. And that's the thing that disgustes me about this classism against the disabled. I am going to call Caleb out for this because this aristocrat doesn't have any fucking idea what it's like to be lumpen.
Okay, but this is sort of one of the things I do want to get to is that so me and you are what would be called organic intellectuals, intellectuals that are not of petit bourgeois scholar. We come from the lower class. Our learning is much more unorthodox, comes from different places. I mean, I struggle a lot with reading because of my fibromyalgia and the way it affects my capacity to focus. So a lot of what I deal with is how I engage with other cadres. Um, because fucking what's it? I focus a lot of my reading to important texts. I mean, there was supposed to be a fucking reading session on today, but I think everyone forgot and has now rescheduled it for Saturday on their minds. But the fucking what's it? Um yes. So with the organic intellectuals, um their knowledge is driven from a less pretentious and bourgeoisificated position. It's looking at things from proletarian interest into literature. Okay, now I remember what I wanted to get to. So I'm stumbling around. So with the organic intellectual, with people who come from lumpen or proletarian backgrounds, um, given the imperialism and the bourgeoisification of the proletariat, I will say lower proletariat to be specific. Um, these groups typically don't have the great accessibility to um resources that you see in the labor aristocracy and the petty bourgeoisie.
I
And
agree.
I mean, a lot of people don't, they either have a few books when they grow up or they have no books when they grow up. And it's like, you know, the home environment has nothing to learn from. It becomes very hard to consistently operate within the school environment to learn from. And um, this comes from the way poverty is inflicted on these places. So this is the thing I want to get to because the lumpen and the proletariat in the lower sector are very limited in their capacity to access knowledge. Um, sorry, I was just remembering that meme from like 2014. Was it 20? I don't fucking know. But we are very, very we hold a lot of importance to the fact that we've garnered that and a very sort of we try and be as expedient about it as possible. Like it's very, very important to us, our intellectuality, but not from a basis of having to feel like we're always right, having a from a principle of wanting to know what is correct.
I agree. And this isn't just me doing this because, oh, I don't like what Caleb Maupin has to say. Oh, I'm just doing this for attention. Let's be honest. Caleb Maupin says the shit he says because he wants the attention. He loves the attention. There's many people within his audience that fucking hate the fucking disabled. They hate black people. They hate indigenous people. And Caleb Maupin is telling them what they want to hear. Because this movement, I don't even know what the fuck to call this petty bourgeois movement that he's pushing, it isn't for workers. His straw man of, oh, do you want to make everyone poor? It's like, okay, where's it? I don't hear anything from Caleb about the horrible conditions that black people live in this country. Well, it's all dog whistles at the end of the day. It's fucking white middle class people. Those are the only people he sees as workers.
You see, those communities are lumpen proletarian a lot of the time, if not all of the time. So Caleb just sees them as criminals and it's all their fault. That would be Caleb's pathology with it. I mean, like when he's going on about his little gas station fucking story that I mean, I really doubt he had the job at the gas station, because if he had a job at a gas station, that wasn't just some summer job he got because he was at college on a college campus flipping fucking burgers for 2 hours a day. Fucking, you know, what the fuck? Wouldn't you go on about your work in a garage, or even both of them, to make a portfolio? But no, he goes on about it in this other video. He's talking about the lump, and he just drops that. Oh yeah, I'm in this. I'm working at this garage. It's out in a black neighborhood. Like fucking a lot of with a lot of the white aristocracy, black neighborhood to them just means criminal area. That's the way they see things, because that racist pathology is still there. I mean, we've seen that with treatment of comrades who are in the labor aristocracy or Marxists and have been in their own homes. Their neighbors are bullying on them and trying to get them out because they want them gone. They want them gone. These are the types of people where if you made it legal, they'd lynch black people.
Don't give them ideas, considering
fucking hell, yeah.
What's been going on with the anti-trans thing that's been going on all over in the U.S. Like, you're actually having open transphobic articles being posted. It's like, wait, this is not the BBC, but they're doing the same thing the BBC is pushing. And since I'm just gonna bring this up, okay, I may not be trans, but I would consider trans people to be disabled. I would.
That's complicated. I mean, society.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I don't mean that they're disabled in the same way that you and I are disabled.
No, but that's what I'm getting. I'm getting at it like that because it could come offensive to people if you. Because I mean, the big problem that they have is transphobes trying to say it's mental illness. But no, I get what you're getting at. Like, that's why I'm saying it's.
I'm not saying it. It's societal. Like, okay, I know someone who's trans. It is very difficult to function as a trans person in capitalist society because you suffer transphobia, homophobia, and misogyny on all fronts. You're dealing with all sorts of mental issues, and you have people that are constantly telling you that your existence is invalid, and have genocidal language against them, legislation against them. And the reason why I bring up the trans people as specifically because if you look at everything that transphobes have in common, we'll just call them TERFs, whatever. They hate black people. They hate disabled people. They hate anyone that doesn't meet what specifically is the model white male or white woman. And the reason why I'm bringing this up because the open genocide he's calling for against trans people, they're going to do it for disabled people soon. Watch.
He already do it. He already basically did, because the way they're going to do it, they'd never just. It's not going to be like 1933 in Germany, where they're actually just putting up posters, get them castrated today. It's not going to be like that. That ship has sailed. Neocolonialism is much more cloak and dagger, and fascism, if it's going to survive, will use neocolonialism. It won't be the stupid. Well, typically fascism is our smartest enemy, so I expect it to not be the stupid. But this is capitalism we're talking about. Anything's fucking possible. The fucking, at least with the way they fucking dream. But the what it will be is it will be directed at the lumpen proletariat. The disabled people they don't like are the ones who are in the worst situations, because the people who are in the middle class, a lot of them are in positions where their income is mostly covered, or they live with other people who cover them, or you get the upper class, they're even great too. So they're not seen as an issue. They just want to get rid of the costs. This is Malthusianism. He's been projecting Malthusianism on literally everyone because he's a Malthusian. He hates the lumpen proletariat. And do you know what? Do you know what is falling down in class more than the labor aristocracy is falling into the proletariat? The fucking proletariat falling into the lumpen proletariat. Wake the fuck up, you dumb ginger cunts.
Well,
The
it is
bourgeoisie
happening.
every fucking time will throw the proletariat under the bus to save the labor aristocracy. That is how they play their fucking game. We are in a Great Depression. He is obfuscating this on fucking purpose.
Yes, he is. And if you guys think I'm doing this for attention, fuck off. Because this, as far as I'm concerned, this is self-defense.
But
Because,
no, do you know what? It's necessitized. There is never enough videos to be made about fucking disabled struggle. Never enough.
well, I'm referring to the Caleb Maupin, because this is an
Well,
anti-Caleb stream.
fucking, we haven't really mentioned him in the title though. So like, can they even turn around and say that?
Well, people who, let's be honest here, be liberal and all of Caleb
They'll be
Maupin's
stream
fans,
sniping, eh?
they're watching this. Let's be real, they are. No one's fooled. Who
I
pays
love
attention to
living
our
in
content?
people's brains. It's great. Like fucking free real estate.
As far as I'm concerned, this is self-defense because allowing Caleb Maupin to say genocidal language against the disabled, which that's what the most of the lumpen are. It'd be irresponsible of me not to be silent because, as I'm just going to say this, as communists, we have a responsibility to combat revisionism and fascism amongst our mints.
So the reason why Caleb is so pissy with the Sophie Mars things, and I'm not going to go into what she's done, is because she is hitting a lot of nails on the head with the cult stuff. Now, it's a very interesting thing. When Maupin did that bit in his stream, he first goes on about the lumpen proletariat and that, and disregards them. Then his next move in topic is to defend class collaborationism with Lincoln instead of the proletariat siding with the slaves against the bourgeoisie. You know, like, would actually be a revolution, not this second American revolution he claims exists. But the and then he promotes class collaborationism and also promotes it through Roosevelt too, and promotes it as an even good thing for Roosevelt. He's like, yeah, well, Roosevelt was a Bonapartism that exploited the situation, but he was good because he was friends with the Soviet Union. Fucking what's it? Nixon's government was great because they were friends with China. That's literally what he just said.
Well, let's be real. Roosevelt would have sided with the Nazis if it was more profitable to do so.
Well, they literally fucking kickstarted them. Roosevelt was still the president while they were starting the Nazis up. He was the president when they invited them into the fucking country for a big old hey.
Mussolini literally praised fucking Roosevelt.
Oh yeah, Mussolini said Roosevelt is like to what Tony Blair is to fucking Margaret Thatcher. That's what he's like to Mussolini.
It's like he said, if you want to know what fascism looks like, look at your New Deal.
Owned. And then there was Churchill writing love letters to Mussolini going, maybe I am a fascist. Ooh. I don't know if he did write ooh or not, but I'm just going to say that he did. And he can't sue me for defamation because he's dead. So fuck you, Churchill. God, I bet they had to cremate him. They don't make graves the size of... Have you seen the size of his bath? Like, it's an unconventional sized bath. It is... Witches' cauldrons are not this big. No, I don't fat shame anyone, but my guy, he's like the example of the Porky meme. Like the big fat capitalist guy in the suit but he's a pig. That's just Churchill. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was based off Churchill. Churchill was the war minister at the time that was made up. It was 1900s, 1910s. He was the war minister at the British government. We don't have term limits here, so governments can just go on for fucking ages.
There's a literal genocide going on right now with the poorest sections of society, and the very fact that you have Caleb Maupin gaslighting the extremely poor of American society is what sickens me, because you have so-called Marxists that still defend Caleb Maupin, who still support Caleb Maupin, despite the fact he shows open hatred and against the disabled, especially. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he views us as fucking leeches that the society would be better off without. I know how people like him think. Like, I deal with that shit all the time with the Social Security program.
He's gonna be one of them people where he's like, oh, they just live off my taxes. Oh, Caleb Maupin is a Jim Jones communist. Well, we know Keaton Mansfield is. Lol.
It's like, these people wouldn't survive being poor. They wouldn't. And as for us wanting to make lives worse for the American people, I'm sorry, but what is it about communism that you don't understand that on the short term, sacrifices have to be made in order to actually save the proletariat as a whole? To actually help the proletariat as a whole, some people's standards of living will have to go down. Like, a lot of these people that he defends, they don't fucking need all this shit that they have. They don't need a fucking large ass fucking mansion. Okay, maybe not a mansion. Well, you get what I mean.
Gas houses, semi-detached or fully detached. They
don't need all this shit.
Cars. People who own fucking Land Rovers when they don't use them off road get shot. You buy a normal car if you're going to drive. Because the people who say it's for safety, do you know what they're doing? They're making it unsafe for everyone, because with cars, when they crash, cars that are the same weight, they're designed that if they hit each other, they have a crumple zone that stops them from murdering everyone. When you have a car that's 3 times the size of all the other cars and weighs fucking 1.5, 2.5 tons, you then change the table and you then have this big bulky fucking car that will kill everyone it crashes into. People in the car will be safe. It turns the roads into a death trap. It's the most aristocratic shit ever. I'm going to stick my kids in big safe car and I'm going to risk killing anyone else if I drive like a dickhead. And anyone who knows anyone who has an SUV or an off-roader that they just use as an on-road car because there's some middle-class fucknut, they don't drive right. They don't drive right. I'm surprised they even have a license.
Well, the thing is, in the short term, things are going to be hard when we build socialism. It isn't going to be fucking like a dinner party. Like, it's not going to be. It's going to be fucking very difficult. And this is how you can tell these aristocrats don't want to build socialism, because they're not willing to make sacrifices for the greater good. Socialism is all about sacrifice. It's all about sacrificing for the greater good. It's all about helping, humanity as a whole. If you only care about certain sections of humanity, then you're not really a socialist. You're just a fascist. Because Caleb's,
as soon as you start preaching class collaborationism as a good thing, you're preaching one of the core principles of fascism. Liberalism is about class competition. It's about meritocracy and big fucking things. It doesn't really. It's a myth, as Marx put it. But class collaboration. Liberalism is very much you are where you are. Get fucked. Like, if you want to get up, you get up. You climb the ladder. If you don't, that's your own fault. That's the way liberalism justifies shit. Which seems to be the way Caleb is going in the lumpen proletariat. As if they have a choice to be in the position they are, as if a lot of people in that have a choice to not be criminal. And
he's literally pushing eugenics.
But, well, yeah, to be frank, I mean, put that aside, because that's more complicated and obscure. The racism, it started off with we need to obscure American history to appeal to. It says the working class of America, but I don't remember the working class of America being this fucking deranged. This seems like they were trying to appeal to the right middle class of America, where most of Trump's base came from. So not very working class. The Taylorism is not even. They're not even doing, like, Taylorism is a problem, and they're not even doing it right. They're following the labor aristocracy. But then again, Caleb Maupin's petty bourgeois. He probably thinks labor aristocrats are all fucking poor ass workers.
He wouldn't know what a poor person looked like if you slapped him in the face. He wouldn't.
No, he would know what they look like because he crosses the street every time he sees one.
Huh. I just like, it's like I hold communists to higher standard. God forbid I hold communists to higher standard. I expect communists to actually support workers. I expect them to actually be supportive of the most oppressed people of capitalist society. I expect.
He was like saying that communists are not like don't do robberies or aren't thieves or and then like what about the Bolsheviks? Stalin was literally leading bank robberies. That was his role in the Bolshevik party because he was disabled.
Yeah, it's like he got it backwards. The very act of building a communist state is not legal at all.
Whoa, wait, are you telling me that revolution might actually involve destroying the base, not just messing around with the superstructure? Starting to sound like one of them Marxists. Is that what we're supposed to be? That's what I think's going on in Caleb's mind. Like
the kind of person that would have called the Bolsheviks ultras.
Like I always say to people, when people call me an ultra, I'm like, oh well, thank you, because ultra is better than super.
But ultra literally has no meaning. In fact, if you really think about it, Caleb is acting more like an ultra than the so-called ultras that he criticizes, because he literally preaches the exact opposite of what communists actually preach.
Engels predicted all of this in Socialism, Scientific Utopia, and the petty bourgeoisie will always try and co-opt the revolution with its language, but implementing neo-feudalism in its place of socialism.
I'm just gonna say this. I will never trust a Trotskyist at all. Every Trotskyist I've ever encountered has been a fascist.
I mean, they're like fascists as well. Fascists, when they retire, they end like from fascism. They're no longer for it anymore. They always end up becoming neocons. The neocons, where fascists and Trotskyists acknowledge that they're both basically the same thing.
Let's not even. I don't even like the word neocon, because neocon is just fascism. That's what it is.
Well, it's complicated because it's been used as such a broad term, neocon. I mean, ex-trot, big words. I mean, he probably still is a trot. I mean,
well, I just don't like using the word neoconservative, because neoconservative and fascist, they're.
No, what I'm getting at is they're not just the same thing, because neoconservative has been used as an umbrella term for anyone who is conservative. So literally a liberal who has conservative social policies is also labeled a neoconservative. It's complicated because America doesn't like to use just ideological terminology. It has to make everything confusing. Then again, you learned that from us.
Yeah,
Oh,
really don't trust anyone that's a trot.
Wait, you're back now. Maybe not. It's the Trotskyists. They're tapping the phones.
Trots are
When I just hear trot shouted loud, and then it
are the worst.
Out.
Because the Trotskyists all of them become fascists. I haven't seen one that hasn't become one.
It's
I mean,
Trotskyism itself was an outlet of the third position. I mean, like Trotsky was pushing petty bourgeois radicalism.
It's like
Lenin pointed it out. Lenin called it what's it? Bolshevik Menshevikism, opportunistic chauvinism. It fascism wasn't really a thing then. No one really had an analysis to gift on the situation. That came later with Benito Mussolini's betrayal of the Communist Party of Italy. Oh no, sorry, the Socialist Party of Italy, but it was a communist party. And he was a Marxist. Actually, Mussolini was the first guy to translate Das Kapital into Italian, and I think other parts of Marx's selected works as well. I'm not sure. And Lenin even praised him once.
After all, regarding like Trotskyists, one of the most famous Trotskyists was one of the heads of the New Atheist movement. I think some of us already know, may not have heard of him. Christopher Hitchens was once a Trot.
Is Hitchens the live one or the dead one? Because
it's like all these Trots are the same.
I think Hitchens isn't Hitchens dead?
Yes, he is. Thank God.
Good stuff.
But
good stuff.
The only reason I'm bringing up Hitchens.
Well, I mean, can we even bring up a bigger character with Khrushchev?
Okay. All right. What's up?
Willkommen! It's all the German I really know. Oh, it instantly leaves. 10 out of 10.
Oh. He probably didn't want to show us. Sorry if or maybe his internet died.
Doxed!
Okay.
The Maupinites are gonna fucking find you.
And that's the thing about Caleb Maupin as well. It's like you have to be very careful of what you of protecting your identity, because Caleb Maupin is the kind of person that will leak your identity.
That was why the CPI leaker couldn't come onto my channel, and he was right to think that way, because they were swarming trying to get fucking
to the public.
Where's he at? Where's he at? No. Like they wanted to fucking find out the voice of the geezer, because the geezer could have been figured out then. I mean, voices are one of the most recognizable things about people.
Wait, who are you talking about?
The CPI leak. The guy who fucking was a whistleblower.
Oh, yeah.
There's a video on it time ago. Yeah. And they're all bitching about it, and they got me in an argument. Oh yeah, fucking AT&T or whoever fucking gives you internet. American tossers and twats.
Well, the thing regarding, Caleb Maupin and his group,
Oh, you're clipping.
Oh god. Oh shit. The internet's fucking with me again.
Possibly.
Oh god. Anyone there? Hello?
Yeah, it's Jemima.
Okay, good. Okay. It's like about Maupin, about his group, like the Bread Tube book. Okay, I'm not a fan of like really most of the people or any of them in the book, but was it really necessary for him to basically dox these people as much as possible? Like, it's almost as if Caleb Maupin is like bully attacked by fat. No wonder you had a neo-Nazi actually loving the Bread 2 book.
Oh man, fucking I still got loads of streams to do because there's so much to talk about on it regarding how their thoughts about China intersect with cultured thug. Willkommen, Yankee.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
These Americans that replicate.
We were just doing a video. We're just doing a thing on classism against this about the lumpen.
Gotcha. I'm just walking my dog.
It's all right.
Because it's a small dog, I'm always tempted to say horrible things because I don't like small dogs. I like big dogs. Well, medium-sized dogs as well. Small dogs are always yappers. They're really annoying.
I don't mind.
He's a quiet one, though. I've not heard him
I
yap
don't
yet.
mind small
It's all
dogs.
good.
He's a quiet one.
I don't mind small dogs.
He is an unusual Jack Russell, I'll say that, because Jack Russells are normally one of the worst of the small dogs. But yeah, but you got to remember, Chihuahuas, they are fucking horrible.
Oh, yeah,
Pugs
they're-
are a product of fucking
Tempe, come on, get off the yard.
fucking proper middle class bitchery shit where they've gone and like fucking what's it? English brain operate actuate. I've been up for more than 24 hours. The fuck. Bruh.
I don't mind pugs.
Poodles are
No,
fucking forcibly
I can't help but
disabled
feel-
because people wanted to make a smaller and smaller dog out of a bulldog. I think it was a bulldog.
I can't help but feel bad for the because it feels like how did this thing how does this dog brave?
He's going down. He's going down.
There is one cat in it. Yeah. So what else should we talk about regarding classism against the disabled?
I mean, what's it? I guess the one thing that really grinds me is the ignorance to how much work it takes for disabled people to do things that people take for granted. I think that's one of the biggest and most common forms of classism towards the disabled. Like walking places, standing up, moving around, doing shit like that for me is an exhausting and agonizing task. But I have to abuse my own adrenaline to get through. I mean, I like thrash metal anyway, so it works. But I listen to as heaviest of metal music as I can because I have a large adrenaline pool, likely because of fucking what's it? Being brought up in a very aggressive environment. I mean, things develop based on the environment in which you are brought up in. And I guess that comes back into hypersensitivity to stimuli again a bit as well, and how that hyper enforces a lot of shit. So I abuse that adrenaline. It's not a good idea to do. I don't advise people to abuse the adrenaline. It can cause heart attacks. I'm not joking. If you overload your heart with adrenaline, it will not like it. Fascinating fact.
The thing about the disabled that people don't see to take for granted is when you're disabled, your income is limited. Like you're literally left with no room to save. A $500 emergency is not possible, and not feasible. And in order to actually have a roof over your head, if you don't have family members to live with that has a stable income, you have to depend on the government, and that's not and the government like takes more and more advantage over you and expects you to do like everything. Like you're expected to give up more and more and more. Like people don't seem to understand like how what it's like to have your agency taken from you, or slowly being taken from you, and they're forcing you to give up what agency you have left.
I mean, it's like when I go to get help from social services, I'm like, oh, what I need, because of my communication difficulties and my struggle with focus, is someone to help me get to the appointment so I can get the healthcare support so I can support myself in the future. Do you know what their response is? We can get someone privately hired to cook and clean, and We can, if you need someone to help shower you, we did this. No. What did I say? I don't want people doing shit like that. I want to do that. I want people to help me to get able to do that. They won't do it. Even though I know they can do it, I know people who get that support in the thing. They're telling me they don't do that support. They lied to me. It's like because I only managed to even get dealing with them because mental health re-advised me there, and they had to directly deal with me with the way mental health did it. But first time I dealt with them, I was on the phone with them during the call and all that, and the woman kept turning around and be like, "We don't deal with people with autism when I'm there to deal with something regarding my fibromyalgia. I'm not on about my autism. I'm on about my fibromyalgia, and constantly we don't deal with issues regarding autism. Not only do they deal with issues regarding autism, because they're social services. If you have a social disability, they are supposed to help. They're actually supposed to help with all sorts of disabilities, not just social, but nonetheless, that is their core function. As a social worker, they are to help people engage with society and function. They spend more time taking people's kids away, but that's another kettle of fish.
Speaking of
From my
that, a lot of
experience,
the lumpen
the kids that
have
are
their
abused are
taken
the ones
away.
they fucking seem to fail to get away.
Speaking of the lumpen, a lot of kids have their parents who are lumpen have their kids taken away.
Yeah, because they're not because they're like arsehole parents, just because they're too poor. They're too poor to afford stuff. So rather than helping them out and putting them on their feet, they just steal their kids.
Which causes lifelong mental health problems with the kids.
Oh, say, can you see?
They're not past the age of 6, and you take them away from, especially the mother, but even the father, because there's a very strong empathic bond that's built between a mother and a child, which is quite obvious because the most of the child and most interaction with the child in the early years. Think about it similarly to how dogs typically pick a favorite in the house, and the favorite person they'll pick is the person who walks, feeds, and feeds them the most, gives them the most attention, is the most cordial to their needs. It's natural instincts. You take a kid away at that point in time, you are absolutely scarred for life. They will not be able to build that bond with some stranger like that. They're gonna be in well, I clicked my fingers if you couldn't see it. But they're gonna be in a situation where they're fucking what's it? In limbo essentially with the way they're trying to relate to and deal with the person who's supposedly murdering them. Like children might not be very independent until the mind very independently minded until the age of 6 years old when that's said that individuality within the consciousness properly emerges. I don't know the validity of that. I'm not a neurologist. Um, or whatever part of the brain this is fucking relying on, because I'm not a brain specialist either. But well, the neurology is the base to the brain when everything else is a superstructure, so I can just cop out. But fuck, I've lost myself. This happens when you get too pathological. You end up going on to tangents.
Oh no.
Then they become more tangents, and you just forget what the fuck you're on about. Welcome to the land of having fibro fog. Don't get fibromyalgia. You have to have descended from a family that has had a long history of extreme trauma, typically through childhood, and to cite it, the era it rose up and was in the 1800s. What form of extreme childhood trauma do you think was going on in Britain when they found that? Oh shit! He's turned into fucking.
Unfortunately, I didn't even hear a good chunk of what you said because of my internet.
Yeah, it's crackling non-stop. There we go. Oh no. Oh,
Fucking
there we go.
piece of shit.
Oh no.
Fuck. God, what a piece of shit. Or maybe the Maupinites are fucking with my internet connection. Who knows?
That crackling is likely because of corrosion, or buildup of summer on one of the things. You just need to get some what's it? I can't remember what the fuck it's called. There's this shit you spray on stuff, and it basically just it removes the fucking the residue. It's typically used for like cleaning out battery spray, battery compartments and stuff. Shit, I know the name of it because it's something that's useful for a massive fucking tape decks I've got next to me. Contact cleaner. That's it. You need contact cleaner. Fucking.
Well, I know this may have gotten a little bit off the rails, but I do think it's still relevant considering the disabled, the lumpen. I think it's still a relevant topic to the discussion, considering that a lot of kids in my country, I can't say for yours, it's probably worse, who are separated from their parents, they're disabled. It's no coincidence that majority of the people that go through foster homes are the disabled.
I mean, you also got
those who are stuck in group homes are the disabled.
I mean, you got the disownment of disabled kids and families as well, but like, you know, it's like the thing I was getting earlier before I got sidetracked, as I do with me tangents. Like I say, I've been up for fucking like more than 24 hours. It was 24 hours 8 or 9 hours ago. I don't know what time I woke up yesterday, because I know I was up I was up at like 3 a.m. and then I went to sleep at like 8 and then woke up at 12 or 1. Fucking hell. Fucking square signals. How are you working square signals? How the fuck have you? I can't believe you've done this. What did you mean? I lost track of what I was saying. It's just getting worse.
I think this comment's kind of funny.
No, it's fun. I need to unplug it.
That guy is
Can you stop fucking square signals, please? Constantly making square signal sounds. Like down my ear roll.
Fuck. I can't help it. My internet connection sucks.
That's not internet. That's fucking headphone jack. Why would the internet? I can't see why the internet would be making you make square signals like that.
I'm not wearing headphones.
What the fuck's going on? What? That's weird. That is. What the fuck?
I don't know what's going on.
In StreamYard's a load of shite.
Okay. I'm back from my walk.
It is sponsored by Chris Hansen, though, or it sponsors Chris Hansen, or the other way around.
Okay.
He's the pet.
Maybe it's better that only not more than one person when I'm doing StreamYard have themselves on camera at one time. Because I know as soon as you turn off your camera, the things got more stable.
I don't feel like
sound better, Stone?
I don't feel like I'm starting up. Yeah, no, it's perfect. I don't feel like I'm starting up a Commodore 64 on tape anymore. Like, it was literally like I'd gone back to 1986.
Maybe if we're doing this on StreamYard, we shouldn't have our camera. We shouldn't have the camera on.
It was just automatically on. I just went with the flow. I
would advise against
it.
I
do the math because I've not been asked to do the math. So if I woke up yesterday at 12 or 1, it's now 9, and I've not slept for 24 hours from now, plus that time back to 12. So that would make it numbers 31 or 30 hours I've been awake, so I'm not the most thoughtific dunk. Oh, it keeps changing it back to that old thing. It's got the fucking Union Jack on it. Go away. We all have our confused
Union
moments. I
Jack,
mean, the
ew.
solidarity in the image was nice. It won't let me change the image. What?
Yo, I do find it very interesting how
Oh, there we go.
every time anything is anti-Caleb, because Caleb Maupin is so obsessed with his what his foes have to say about him that he sends his enemies or whatever peons or whatever you want to call them to watch the content. It's like, why aren't you focusing on organizing your organization? It's like this guy has such a huge ego. What?
He did you see like the video he commented on? The guy's actually in our chat, Marxist Leninist Hojist.
No,
and he
I
commented on a video. He commented on a video that was like has 35 views.
Caleb Maupin priorities. I mean, it's like back when my channel only had about that many subscribers. He was fucking commenting and getting antsy because I pointed out that the man Ra fucking turned around and did whataboutism about ethno states. Yeah, someone turned around and asked this question. In the fight against Maoism, are ethno states a justifiable thing? What do you think is the correct answer to that question?
It's an obvious no.
What do you think Caleb did?
He was basically justifying it.
He didn't answer the question. He
did
asked if certain countries were ethno states. Like, is Israel an ethno state? Was one of the ones on the list. Israel a apartheid system? Yeah, I think so, Caleb. I think so.
I don't. It just sounds like these people. This sounds like a fascist dog whistle. It's like, oh, so we should basically genocide all of non-white people that are Maoists.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I just see anti-Maoism as a dog whistle to anti.
I mean, the whole white Maoist
and anti-indigenous.
But the whole white Maoist thing, Maoism doesn't come from white people. Maoism comes from brown people and black people. Like,
it does. I mean, majority of the fucking
white people who call themselves Maoists, but the majority of anyone who is a Maoist is in the third fucking world, Caleb. Fucking press release. You like those, you news cunt.
Majority of Maoists are not even fucking white. He knows this. He knows this. He knows this. There's no way he doesn't. There's no way he doesn't know this. It's just anti-Maoism. It's like I do have a confession. You know what motivated me to read Settlers in the first place?
All the shit talking, but no actual critical analysis.
Caleb Maupin. Caleb Maupin's tirade against it. B Liberals tirade against it. Trav's tirade against it. Every one of these white fucking so-called communists, their tirade against it made me want to fucking read it, because it's like, why are these people so scared of this book? What is in this book that's so bad? I've read it. It's like, I agree with a lot of what the book had to say, and disagree in other areas.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Fuck.
It's like,
I love doing that to people.
It's like this whole anti-Sakai shit is ridiculous. when he wasn't even there was other authors that actually said the same shit he said.
I mean, what's it? It's the. I mean, Maupin probably has read the book. Let's be real. I mean, so this is the thing with the petty bourgeoisie. They're scholars. They read a lot. They look into things a lot. Oswald Mosley knew what he was talking about when he was slamming communism. Mussolini was literally a communist at one point and was a translator of communist works. He definitely knew his way around the pages. I mean, I've spoke with not just Net on this, but also a couple of lumpen comrades of the lumpen proletariat. And what's it? We were talking about that the scariest forms of fascism are those that come from people with a history in leftism, typically socialism. Or mostly, or sorry, socialism is the worst of it. English, because when they know the theory of Marxism, fuck. That means they can play their game right, and fascists have already been the smartest adversary to communism. It seems like a mad thing to say they lost, but they were meticulous. They were well organized at one point. I mean, Goebbels is another example of the fascist who was infatuated with Marxist literature. Goebbels was never a communist.
Let's be real. Majority of fascists are labor aristocrats.
Well,
fascism mainly appeals to the labor aristocracy.
To balance the audio, Gangaros, you need to turn your input down just slightly. You're quite loud.
you want me to?
Just slightly, like you're just slightly over. Because I think you might be echoing slightly as well through my mic. I won't be able to hear it because I don't have superpowers, unfortunately.
What about here?
Apparently, I'm a fucking natural born criminal. You're actually nice and somber. You might be a bit too low now. I don't know. It was just when you raised your voice, then you came booming through my speakers. Like,
Is this better?
oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's nice.
Perfect.
I can hear you.
Nice.
Well,
if you listen to somebody like Caleb, you would think that all the lumpen are just stormtroopers, just straight up, they're all Hell's
Which is what I
Angels.
wanted to get into earlier. Sorry to cut you up because I might forget again. So, Dark Snow, you mentioned this earlier, and it's sort of like this is what I wanted to get into. So, the lumpen are going to be the stormtroopers of capital. Let's go back to Marx's era. Whom were the stormtroopers that defended capital, private property? Was it A, the Pinkertons, or B, some random bunch of lumpen proletarians that were hired to do that defensive? No, it was the Pinkertons, who were labor aristocrats, if not petty bourgeois. Like they were not poor people, the Pinkertons. They were paid a lot to guard these things. Actually, one of the reasons why the police was justified in its implementation, Robert Peel being the inventor of the police, and he based it off the colonial garrisons, like one for one off the colonial garrisons. I mean, it's sort of like the first dip into what fascism will show for people because this is class treachery. It's making a part of the proletariat integrated into a function that is that of the aristocracy's task, typically. So it's putting them in a position where they're more attentive towards the defense of the structure of the system. The private property is the core backbone of capitalism, especially in regards to the industrialization period where they're dealing with the peasant conflicts, and then after that, the conflicts with the mercantilists. The I don't think they were I don't think they were primitivists at that point. I think they were just traditional nativists, naturalists. Sorry, that's the one. Naturalists, traditional naturalists, and whatever the fuck the anarchists were up to.
Well, the thing about Caleb Maupin when he basically and his ilk basically is calling the lumpen the stormtroopers of capitalism, I find that ironic considering when you look at the history of fascist movements, the first and last line of defense of capitalism is always the middle class, and the first and the loudest supporters of fascism are always the middle.
That's what I'm getting at with the police. So with the police, They're a section of the proletariat. The police are a section of the proletariat that has been raised up into a middle class position to dictate power over other proletarians and keep the system in line. It's a part of the bourgeoisification principle that's like to crop up in capitalism in the epoch of imperialism. These guys aren't lumpen. These guys are the literal stormtroopers of the state. They are the ones who go and break strikes. I'm sorry, but during Marx's time, the police was still a new concept. I hope people are aware of this. The bourgeoisie were using different tactics back then to how they use now. They just send the police in these days.
Yep.
This isn't fucking 1852. Fucking, I swear, like, what? I mean, look, Sir Robert Peel was fucking 1800s fellow. It was around that century.
Well, let's be real regarding that, because everything that Caleb says is
1829
self-projection
was
on his part. Because his class,
1829 was the start of the Metropolitan Police.
well,
1829. It was a
real.
new concept.
Sorry.
It was a new concept, and it was about breaking things down. That's all right, but it's a new concept, and it was about bringing the brutality that was in the colonies home to structure society and deal with the radical elements that existed, defend private property for. I mean, here's the thing: with the way the system worked, they were making the people pay for this. They would put it through the tax system rather than the bourgeoisie having to privately pay a overpriced worker, a labor aristocrat, to come and fucking guard their property. They can just have the police literally on call, and they're paid for by the people that you're oppressing with the police. But sorry, go on.
Well, it's just everything he says about the lumpen is self-projection, because historically, it's always people of his class that have supported fascism and actually been the front runners of fascism. I mean, look what. Okay, I'm just gonna use America as an example because I can't speak for other countries. The biggest supporters of Biden and Trump, who are they? And Hillary Clinton, who are they?
Labor aristocrats, petty bourgeoisie, people who still have faith that you could do something with this system. Ah, cute.
Well, I'm
Because
just
that
gonna
is the
use.
thing. When you're in that labor aristocratic class position, your two choices are continue pushing the system or support a coup against it, because they're not going to turn around and think, oh, I'm going to go join the proletariat, the lumber proletariat, the revolution. Fuck off. They'll stab us in the back at every turn. The only time they'll join us, and I'll use Trotsky as an example. Does anyone know when Trotsky agreed with the October Revolution?
The day
Ding, ding, ding.
before.
Literally a day before. He was against it up until the day before. And this is the petty bourgeoisie in action. They don't want to do this thing. Trotsky wanted to continue the fucking what's it government the provisional government for fucking until capitalism had finished its development. He even said it openly. But then all of a sudden changed his mind because the revolution was going to happen anyway, and he wanted to be on the right side of the war. Slimy little bastard. And Trotsky had a hand in squandering early efforts of the Chinese Revolution. Petty bourgeois sabotage.
That's the thing. You can. The narrative that Caleb Maupin says in his ilk about the lumpen is useful in order to divert the historical function that their class has played in suppressing workers' movements, fighting back against minimal gains that the poor gang or
They're
the
probably
role
gonna
of
try and tell you that the
historical.
Pinkertons were fucking lumping or some shit when they were literally fucking rich ass motherfuckers working a job for capitalists.
This reminds me of the people who said the Freedom Convoy truckers are lumping.
Yeah, but they were trying to do that to push defense of them, and it's like, what? I'm getting confused here. You guys hate the lumpen, now you like the lumpen, and it's these truckers who own trucks and companies.
It's
Like
like another thing I
maybe
find-
like if they were lumpen bourgeoisie, they wouldn't be dealing with you wouldn't be able to get a job anywhere. You're lumpen bourgeoisie. You'll be like, yeah, I'm going to start a delivery company. I'm openly lumpen. Yeah, good luck.
You know, the thing about this whole thing is, and I'm just gonna say this, like this latest thing with Amazon is like another thing to bring that's valid. Is Caleb Maupin is not on the side of workers. He's on the side of bosses on every single turn.
I mean, you literally have Haz fucking one of his dick shafts suicide with him, and Caleb isn't even like there to criticize the motherfucker on his shit, like you should be doing in an org where you hold the line. But then again, they haven't even got a mass line to hold. The fucking what's it out of the movement into the masses? They don't know what the masses are. But
Actually,
no,
they do
Haz
know
was
what the
literally
masses are.
turning around, and no, because mass line is specifically from the proletariat.
Yeah, but I'm going by their logic.
No.
When they
Their
when they
logic,
think
their
of the
logic can
masses,
suck a dick.
when they think of the masses, they think of white middle class people. That's what they see as the masses.
No, you see, the CPGBML, they use the term advanced worker.
I fucking hate even using the term advanced worker because what the fuck does that even mean?
I don't. It sounds so condescending. Like, what the fuck?
Because I guarantee you, poor disabled workers know fucking a lot more about exploitation than some advanced worker.
Well,
Like,
I mean, experience is the only pathway to genuine knowledge, and the experience of torture in the system that colonized people, disabled people, um, immigrant groups, LGBTQ go through is tenfold what these people deal with. They don't know how it is. Fucking
yeah, that is true. It is true, and it is not. None of these people can comprehend anything that these people go through. But let's be real, Caleb doesn't care about what the experiences of the lumpen are, and the hard choices that the lumpen have to make on a daily basis in order to survive. It's like, does anyone actually believe that we enjoy fucking being where we are? Do actually people believe that, especially black, lumpen? Do they think they enjoy having to basically bend the law in order to actually survive to feed themselves and their families?
I
Do
mean,
you think they
this man
enjoy
claims
doing
to have
that?
read the Panthers. This man claims to have read the Panthers. Well, let me preach Pantherism to you. Why does Mandem get into street organizations? Because they're disenfranchised, they're on their own, and they need to support each other. That's why that happens. Now, it turns into exploitative shit a lot of the time. We do live in capitalism. Well done for people noting that people can become lumpen petit bourgeois, lumpen bourgeoisie. Round of applause. Now, they don't use those terms, though. They lump us all into lumpen proletariat because apparently it means declassed. If it means declassed, just call us declassed. Don't call us lumpen proletariat. Don't use the word proletariat if we're not proletariat to you, because that's disgusting. What's the point of using the term if it doesn't mean that? I swear, Marx was pissed when he called this shit. But you know, it's these organizations function in different mannerisms. This is what the Panthers got into, and why Brothers on the Block is important, because there's a lot of organizations without communist input that go about doing things for their community more than any of these MLs have ever done for their community. Going around and holding signs and saying socialism now in the middle of New York, the last place you're going to convince someone of communism. Yeah, good fucking luck. But going out and doing actual street organizing, we're doing food projects, doing educational programs. This is the thing that needs to be done. Anti-war protest, not every small little protest that fucking people see here and there. No, we need the big anti-war protest. Everyone goes on about general strike till the wars are stopped. Why should it be general strike until we get healthcare while Palestine gets genocided? Or why is it general strike until we get better hours and better pay while people in Yemen are under genocide, while people in Africa are under siege and genocide in many regions. You know, because of white colonialism, because of settler colonialism in general, or neo-colonialism. Sorry.
Well,
And,
the
and
thing
then they'll
is,
say, that you're just wanting to make everybody in the first world poor.
I
Which
want
is
to
a-
make
He just
people
admitted it!
obviously poor,
which is
but they deserve it.
ironic. Let's be honest here. None of these people want socialism, because if they truly did, okay, let's be generous. Maybe there are some people who in the CPI that might want socialism. Let's just be a little generous, maybe. But the thing that these people, I'm not addressing Caleb, these people don't seem to understand that in order to build socialism, let's say in America, let's just use that as an example, sacrifices are going to have to be made. You can't just like keep everything as is if we're going to make this country a better place to live. You can't do it because there's still people that are extremely poor that have a difficult time functioning in society. You can't just keep them in the same position if you're going to call yourself socialist. The middle there's a lot of parts of the country that are going to like be poorer, not to the extent they're not going to be able to afford to fucking live. Let's
Okay,
not get that
here's
twist
the
here.
thing. Here's the thing. In socialism, there's a core principle to socialism, and that is even development. Like either we're all going to be poor or we're all not going to be poor. That's just how things are going to go. Like we're all in this together.
I was about to
So
say what I was
it
about to
wouldn't
say
be
is
regional. It would just be everywhere. Either we'd be suffering or we wouldn't be. Now we most likely wouldn't be because I mean everything won't cost so. Actually, when you eliminate commerce entirely and you eliminate commodity production, which actually doesn't need to take that long to do in socialism. Stalin was pretty adamant that fucking commodity production would be eliminated in the Soviet Union in no time. Unfortunately, revisionism happened, a big coup, and social imperialism. Long story. But
well,
before that coup happened, even development was a principle of the Soviet Union. Very important. These guys ain't about that. City builders, cities,
what I was about to
cities,
say.
cities are a contradiction against socialism because a city is a concentrated development that comes from class exploitation. We concentrated things to these areas for them to be the most profitable, whether that be primitive accumulation of capital or capital.
What I was about to get at, Stone, is yes, there are certain sections of the American population that will be poorer, but as a whole, the living standards for the American people would go up. If you were serious about socialism, you would have to be. It's like, come on, do these upper middle class aristocrats? They don't fucking need all this shit that they have. They don't need a fucking large fucking house. They don't need all this. They don't need to own a bunch of property. While fucking like hundreds of thousands of people are possibly millions, a few millions of people are unable to afford get a fucking roof over their head. No, it's like in the short term, things are gonna be fucking difficult. Be, when we first implement socialism, because in order to build something new, you're gonna have to tear down what came before it. Like, destruction and creation are the same side of the same coin. You see what I'm getting at here? It is easier to build, I mean, not build, destroy than it is to build. What essentially what I'm saying. What these people want, they kind of they want to destroy like various different sections of the working class. They don't want us to
Not about the
exist.
working class. The working class is fine. You got to remember the working class is bourgeoisificated for the most part.
Well,
They
let's.
have a problem with the lumpen proletariat. That's where the problem is. The working
I
class,
view the
most
lumpen as
of,
the real
most
proletariat.
of, yeah, but regardless, the termination is determined. The terms are different, and the proletariat is distinct from the labor aristocracy in certain retrospects. Typically, their accessibility to the education system. But so here's the thing. Um, and the districts of which they grow up in. That's very core to class. Um, uh, but is the thing. Most of the proletariat are so caught on with the system They don't give a shit. They're not bothered about workers. They're fine with that. Like, they know they need to get their shit delivered. If anything, they're some of the most pretentious people that expect workers to be robots for them. No, they were going straight for the poor, because this is Malthusianism 2.0, and it's been rising for a while, and this just got off the bottom. Used to hear this rhetoric all the time, because it was always the rhetoric around like smokers and drinkers. You just leave them to die, or opiate addicts as well. Just leave them to die. And you know what? If you actually look into it, you'll find that there's cases in Britain and Canada and America, and I imagine in fucking mainland Europe too, of ambulances waiting out for people having overdoses on heroin to die, and then just pronouncing them dead.
It's also why they have certain laws passed or certain legislations passed to prevent the disabled from even starting families.
Autistic people in America can be denied necessary transplant. I can't remember what one it is, but there's like an important organ transplant. I think just deny it.
Oh,
Okay.
that's great for me to know.
Yeah.
I
It
didn't
may be
even know
any
that.
organ, or maybe it's just any operation. I don't know. Fucking someone told me. I was told by some American.
Well, even the case that what I was saying is with these so-called communists, they're not internationalists, and that's what we have to be as internationalists. We can't enrich Americans at the expense of the people that are being exploited in order for America to have its wealth. Because no, we can't. No. And that's the thing that these people don't want to actually. They won't accept the fact that America, under a socialist, society, as a whole, would lose their standards of living that they currently have.
There
They
would
wouldn't
never
be
be
nearly as high.
there won't be no America, though. That's the thing as well. They're forgetting.
Okay, here's the problem. Another thing as well. This shit that they're pushing, majority of Americans don't fucking want it. No matter how much you fucking try to repackage socialism, like as something like as conservatism, Americans are fucking. They're not fucking okay. Americans, okay, they may be stupid. A lot of them may be, but they're not so stupid not to know that
It's
conservatism
not
and
about the
communism are not
conservatism that's the
compatible.
main thing. So fascists, you got to remember, they advertised to multiple directions. Think about the Nazis. They went for a multilinear fashion where they operated a socialist aesthetic, a conservative aesthetic, but they also racked a German patriot aesthetic. The main core feature to their aesthetic is the patriotism, which is intoxicating to Americans. You're some of the worst in the world for it. Britain is really bad. And as I always say, American patriotism is just repackaged British patriotism. It's the same dime, but we don't use dimes. We use fucking pennies. Got $1 on a dime.
Yeah, I don't know. I just find the very concept of I just find Caleb disgusting. I really do. I find him gross. The very fact that this guy is supposed to represent communism disgusts me. Like the
It
fact
makes me want to drink a bucket of slime. That
the fact that we have
anti-revolutionary
people like
slime.
that representing communism, like what the hell do we need COINTELPRO for? When
I'd
we
like
have
to hear what China gets up to.
when we have the CPI essentially doing the work of any anti-communist organizations in various countries. Because they're
Yeah, so
essentially
they're literally friends of Action Francais, or at least they cordially sat on a board next to Maupin, sat next to I think it was the leader, I don't know, one of the people from Action Francais, a French monarchist group that helped the Nazis commit genocide in Western Europe against Jewish people, Roma people, and I wouldn't surprise me if they're rounding up the disabled too. I don't have any sources for the disabled, but
nothing would shock me if they did.
Yeah.
well, it's just because of it being also the character list for the fascists, and Action Francais were organized around, the French fascists and monarchists who supported Hitler's invasion of France. That's why Hitler managed to pile drive France. It wasn't just because loads of mini tanks and good tactics, although that was helpful. It was actually because the French military betrayed the fucking French government, and people don't talk about that.
I just find it
Yeah.
offensive that the lumpen are basically portrayed as like, oh, we're strongmans of capitalism. Oh yeah, some disabled guy who had his fucking leg blown off in a war, or had his fucking permanently disabled because his fucking employers didn't fucking follow safety regulations. Yeah, they're a fucking criminal. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was Elon Bezos paid me to do this. All the Maupin watches have been paid directly by Elon Bezos, the leader of the Amazon, the Amazon.
Or
Sorry,
fucking
Amazon.
or here's another. It's like, I don't know if anyone realizes this. Caleb does, but do you know majority of veterans are lumpen?
Yeah,
The
because
reason why I bring
this
this up
happens in this country as well, because they get thrown away by the military onto the streets.
The reason why I bring this up because Caleb Maupin, his anti-lumpen stance is also against the veterans as well, who come home from who are not fortunate enough to been middle class, who come home and don't even know how to function in society. And majority of the homeless are fucking veterans.
Well, you mean a majority of homeless of veterans are homeless, because they do not make the majority of the homeless. How many veterans are there?
There's a lot of them that are homeless, though.
Yeah, but they wouldn't make up the most of the homeless. The most of the homeless would likely be of colonized demographic, and to put it into a take away ethnicity for a second, are disabled. Typically, it's about 70 or 80% of the of most populations of homeless people are disabled.
I'd say it's more than that, considering a majority of them can't even function. Some of them, a lot of them, majority of them can barely walk. They could barely actually, speak a coherent sentence because they're so fucked up. It's like that's why
I'm not taking that. No,
I just find it very sickening.
I've spent my life around pissheads, alcoholics who do slur. I spent my time around the lumpen, and most people are people who can walk, run, fight, and kick the fuck out of people. Like it's not like, It's the thing. People in the lumpen are survivors. There'll be people who are ramblers. They're typically pissed. They're not the majority of the lumpen. Pissheads are the loudest fuckers. Majority of the lumpen are on drugs, though. That is truth. Well, tends to be around 70 to 80% on that as well. But interestingly enough, they found out the majority of drug users, there was a study in LA that was done. The majority of drug users in the homeless are using it for disabilities, self-medicating.
Well, if these people were given a choice, of having a home, let's say no string attached, or
That's
continue
not
to
very
stay up.
American.
What?
You're supposed to scam people. You've got to be American about it. You got to rip them off.
I'm just saying, if you gave them the choice between like a better life or still be on the street, they're gonna choose. The thing is, these people aren't monsters like Caleb is portraying them as.
Okay, here's a thing that needs to really be taken into account. Do people understand that when you see Mandem sitting on the streets, that's not all the time he's there. He's not there every day of the week. You would ever go there. Mandem's also got to go down to the council. Now, why is Mandem going down council? Because Mandem's signing forms to get himself a house, to get himself a flat. They want a place to live. These people think that they just want to trap the streets forever. That ain't the way people are. Everyone wants to be in functional living and have a decent fucking life with a decent job and a decent income. So we're all brought up to want, like, you know, some of us end up coming to a point where our experiences drives a realization that that stuff is pipe dream crap, and we have to accept their circumstances and survive. Because if you don't try and survive and focus on surviving, you will be fucking killed by the fucking whims of reality.
Well, my father has been lumpen most of his life. He's been homeless off and on since the late 1990s. And it's not pleasant, honestly. Even though I don't have a good relationship with my dad, it's very complicated. You know, I just find the very concept that lumpens are all criminals and all that all of them are just going to side with the government, like in order to stop fucking like a workers' movement. It's like, if anyone's actually spoken to the majority of the lumpen, they don't trust the government. They're probably the most like fearful of the government out of anyone. Like they're the least trustworthy of the fucking government or the fucking capitalists.
See, I'm all the way over in this weird place called England. I know mad things, and they're calling me a State Department asset, and I'm a bit confused there. Now,
Why would you
if
be
they're on about in England, State Department, you got to be a bit more specific than that. Every member of cabinet is a Department of State because we're not morons. We know how to label things properly. But American petty bourgeoisie, they don't know how to fucking use a pencil properly, no more than fucking.
Yeah, that's the thing that really surprises me. Not surprises me, but it's like a State Department. You don't fuck if you were a State Department head. Why the fuck would you live in a fucking shack essentially?
Hey, this crack shack keeps me going. Yeah, I mean, if I'm part of the State Department, why have I not gotten the healthcare that I've needed and I've been getting thrown out of hospitals? Wouldn't I have like private health insurance that would not have me dealing with an injury that's needed operating on for fucking 5 years? And is critically needed operating on for the last 3 years. So I'm gonna have some reversible damage to deal with, yay! But sorry, irreversible. I can't English. Yeah.
All this shit is just a way to delegitimize anything that you say. Like it's like you're a State Department head. What? Because we don't fucking simp for fucking Putin, who's fucking waging war against the people in Ukraine. He doesn't give a fuck about the fucking people in Donbass. If he gave a shit about them, he would have done something fucking years ago. He just using that as he used that as a fucking excuse to fucking flex his muscles because he knew that fucking NATO is fucking not as strong as they once were. That's all. He doesn't give a shit about the people in fucking about Donbass. I think it's fucking nothing more than propaganda.
My real agreement is with like places like China for praising somebody like Putin, who was directly involved in the dismantling of the Soviet Union in the 1980s. He was part of those liberal, quote-unquote, reformers in St. Petersburg Communist Party who was involved in the dismantling of the Soviet Union and privatization of the economy. And also, the China is another one that these people they'll either blatantly ignore or they'll say, actually, it's good that China is actually opposing all these communist revolutionary movements because they're just a bunch of ultras and they need to be killed because they're actually they're ones who are the anti-revolutionary in their mind.
Let's not even get started on how they're they're against the right of self-determination. I mean, fucking Flame of Liberation with its debate with leftism today was literally like claiming that Russia was justified in suppressing liberation movements against the Russian government.
Chechenian, specifically.
Yeah.
But Chechenian,
It's like fucking disgusting. It's like these so-called communists. They claim that they support the right to self-determination, yet they are against the people's movement in the Philippines. They're against the people in Peru fighting against their fascist government in Peru. They're against I'm gonna say this. They're against. I wouldn't be surprised if they're against Palestinians fighting for their self-determination in Israel, and fucking the Yemenis' right to self-determination against the Saudis. They don't fucking care about fucking the right to self-determination of any people. They don't. Their actions prove that they don't. Because if you're going to support Russia suppressing a liberation struggle against the people in Chechnya, I think that's what the country's called.
Chechnya.
Yeah, then you're not going to support fucking the liberation movements in any country. It's like, not to mention, Israel's one of fucking Russia's biggest supporters. Oh, or am I mean the other way around? Russia being a big
China is its second largest trading partner.
Here's the thing. Anyone who is like a rampant supporter of China like this, and has read any form of Marxism or listens to other people who are Marxists, so you don't even have to be someone who's well read really to get that China's not fucking communist. I figured it out within the how long had I been living at my mum's? Because this is the first time I got kicked out, and I was sofa surfing between my mum's, and that's when I watched the Jason Emery video that showed it, and it showed what China was, and I was like, oh well, that sucks. I was upset that there wasn't a nation that was a massive socialist country I could support, but then I got on with it and moved on because it's what you got to do. But it's my first communism shit to be still, because the only other people I know who I will at least give some respect to are the people who are afraid. I understand that, like, fucking the post-truth era that we're in is ridiculous, and it is a post-truth era.
I gotta address this. Wahhabism is not fucking Islam. Wahhabism is a reactionary movement in fucking that is the most extreme form of Islam. Radical, what you call radical Muslims don't fucking speak for Muslims. Muslims for thousands of years lived with their neighbors without waging war on a massive scale like the Europeans have. That's fucking sick. No, I don't tolerate
Islam. Islam is bullshit. Only 700 years old.
What?
Islam is only 700 or 800 years old.
Okay. It still stands though when I'm saying.
You're getting confused with Judaism there. Judaism is the one that's like 10, 15,000 years old.
Yeah, but both. That doesn't change the fact that if Islam is evil as New Atheist says it is, I'm sorry, I get really pissed off when I hear this.
No. It's fine because I have Arab brothers, and you know what? My Arab brother out in Lebanon, he's all about pushing socialist ideas for his people, pushing forward, and he is seen as a radical by his compadres. What's your problem with him? He wants a society that provides for his people, that is anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, that will protect the Arab people, that will protect the Islamic people. And one thing Pan-Arabism always takes into account, because it has to, because the Arab people span across North Africa, is their relationship to the African people. Like Nasser, for any problems that any of us you could find with Nasser, there's so many good things that come from him. Nasser's 3 circles for Egypt is a really, really interesting concept that I think a lot of communists should look into, because it's really important when looking at pan struggles like Pan-Arabism, Pan-Africanism, and things like that. Nasser saw Pan-Arabism and Pan-Africanism have an important intersection in Egypt, and it sort of shows the the very interesting relationship that these things have and how they will intersect and how the world will still have a very strong relationship, even though there are these pan struggles that represent different groups, because we need that self-representation of these groups. Stalin understood this in the Soviet Union when he promoted the extra rights for Jewish and Georgian people, and I think Cossacks.
I'm just going to bring this up too. Well, Europeans were committing genocide against Jews in Europe, and it's waging wars against each other. Yeah, the Islamic Golden Age, which most of what we take for granted in our modern world would not exist if it weren't for the Islamic Golden Age. So I just do not tolerate disrespect towards the Islamic religion. Not to mention, it was Muslims that actually protected Jews when they were suffering persecution, not Christians.
Yes. I mean, as well, a lot of the time the Christians were going for both the Muslims and the Jews. They're both so specifically Arab people were the target of these people, because Arabs and any ethnicity of Jew, I do believe. I don't think there is an ethnicity of Jew that isn't Semitic, but I might be wrong. Are Semites of the Orient. So they were typically targeted with very heavy anti-Semitic propaganda ever since. Well, I mean, you could go all the way back to the Egyptian times, but to talk from the modern era, and I don't mean the modern era as in like from the context of the last 2,000 years, like modern era where it's the last 200 years. I mean, like, let's look on a scale of the last 15,000 years. So the last sort of 1,000 years. You're looking around the emergence of the Christian kingdoms in the hundreds, the late hundreds to the early thousands. That's where you really saw the rise of very vitriolic anti-Semitism. Again, I want to cover this thing that Vegan Tuber said though. So BDS movement would definitely be labeled as ultra leftist by these pat socks. Why? Because we pro-BDS advocates want capital to stop flowing from into the Zionist state for Palestinian liberation.
Yes.
And that would include countries like Russia and China that trade with Israel. But they never bring that up.
Any country that supports Israel, as far as I'm concerned, is not a country I trust.
China celebrated getting to the deal with Israel to sell them drones, like on social media. I can't remember which fucking thing, and I think it was a news guy. Either way, they celebrated. It's not like they're just doing it because of like they got to do what they got to do. Never trust anyone who says that shit. They just did what they had to do. Fucking no shit. They did what they had to do. That's what fucking everyone does. But why did they do what they thought they had to do? Because doing what you think you might have to do doesn't mean you did what you had to do. What is right to do? What is right and what you had to do is arbitrary language at that point. You're starting to be arbitrary when you say, "Oh, they had to do what they had to do." What do you mean, what they had to do? Well, break it down to me. What was it they had to do? What was the situation going on? Hindsight might give me a bit of 20/20, but they're dialectical materialists. They should be figuring it out as they go along.
China does not have to support a genocidal state. They don't have to do it. They don't need to do it. But they do it because they have to, because the system that China is advocating for is essentially fucking capitalism. They're not pushing socialism. I mean, China keeps moving the goalpost on when they're going to have socialism. First it's 2030, then it's 2050. Now it's like I've been hearing 2070. Is that what it is now?
I honestly don't know, because according to Caleb, it's already socialist. So,
but
so I had a
socialist though.
I had a Chinese dentist explain this to me. Sorry, a Chinese Canadian dentist. And he was like, "Okay, so China, they don't see socialism as a socioeconomic system. They see it as a concept." What does that sound awfully familiar? Like familiar to? Sorry.
Yeah, it sounds an awful lot like a special kind of socialism.
You know, not like those Frankfurt socialists, rah rah rah, Hitler rants for 7 hours. Helping a lumpen and disabled street sister out today who was going through personal problems. Just wanted to send my love and respect, solidarity to my comrades. I love and respect, brother. Love and respect. What's it?
Solidarity,
I
comrade.
haven't been on fucking I don't even know where the other phone's been chucked on the Facebook messagings. I was fucking off grid for up until about an hour before I got messaged that this stream was going to happen. I was blanking everyone. I actually missed an ample opportunity to do a stream on Palestine, which I'm really gutted on and been kicking myself a bit. But I need
Oh
to now
God!
wait again round for when Dr. Weisfield's available.
Isn't fucking the bloodthirsty settlers in Israel attacking them on their holy holiday again?
Oh yes, so they stormed the Alaska Mosque again.
Fucking Christ! Yeah,
Is it just me, or like every time there's a holiday around, it's basically like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna go and commit a lot of war crimes, basically.
because the West doesn't fucking give a shit. Okay. They have support from China. They have support from Russia. They have support from the UK and the United States. It's like Israel knows that no one, like the international community, doesn't give a shit about what they do, because China doesn't certainly give a fuck that they're killing
Israel signed.
Certainly,
Israel signed. So is the thing. Israel is literally playing Australia games. So, Australia was the first government to sign onto the post-World War II, fucking anti-genocide act to ban genocide. Which, I mean, cultural genocide was on the list. Now, the original publication of it got edited. But what's it?
Oh, that's something that'd be worth talking about, but not in this stream, because that's beyond the scope of this stream. But yeah, like Israel, the reason why Israel's allowed to do what it does, because like you know, think of a spoiled child that's used to getting their way when nobody will do anything to them, because they know that nobody will do anything to them. That's why they're empowered to do anything. That's what Israel is. They know America certainly won't do shit. They certainly know Russia won't do shit, or China. And any country that is against what Israel does, let's be honest, in Israel's eyes, they don't fucking matter.
I mean,
they really don't.
They've literally threatened to like nuke Europe, so that's one thing.
Nothing's more depressing than when you search the word proton before, like the actual scientific thing. I wasn't trying to search that; I was trying to get proton mail up, but rather than the scientific proton coming up, no, the first thing to come up is proton cars. Jesus Christ! Late stage capitalism moment.
Okay, I'm gonna address this.
Punishing.
Hamas is not innocent. Where have any of us said that Hamas is innocent? Where have any of us? Okay.
Oh my god! So, do you know what? Like, I don't even justify it. I don't even care if they're innocent or not. Fuck off. They are literally being colonized. I don't care who the fuck they are. Get the settlers out. Let the Palestinians deal with their problems themselves. If Hamas is an issue, they can fucking deal with it. They have a right and a sovereignty to deal with their problems. Hamas being this or being that does not justify settler colonial terrorism, where they murder children wanton, they blow up apartment blocks filled with families. You disgusting waste of space of a human being.
Or even arrest fucking children. It's like, no, there's no fucking excuse. As for Hamas, I don't fucking give a shit. I'm just gonna say this. I don't give a shit what Hamas does to Palestine. They're not Palestinians, to fucking Israelis, because Israelis fucking act like a bunch of bloodthirsty psychopaths that kill indiscriminately with no consequences. And you know what? In the eyes of the Palestinians, nobody gives a shit about them. Yet you have this one organization that is the only one that really does anything for them, represents them, fights for them. It makes sense why they would support Hamas over fucking anyone in the fucking West, because Hamas is the only one that does anything.
Not that simple. Hamas is one group. They don't control everything. So
Yeah.
I know that, but I'm just saying that to rationalize why would they support Hamas. And like whatever issues of Hamas, it's not up to us Westerners to dictate how the Palestinians should be dealing with Hamas. You should fucking dictate what Israel they should be handling the situation, because they have all the power. They're the ones that are committing the genocide. They're the ones that are not being held accountable for everything that they do. Israel is not innocent in any fucking retrospect, because Israel at every turn starts shit with the Palestinians. Like attack, they constantly do shit to them in their holy fucking holiday. They have no respect for the land that they live. They're destroying holy sites. They don't even allow people in their own fucking country to visit their place of worship. Israel is a fucking fascist country, and I don't give a shit about bourgeois law. I really don't give a shit. I critically support Hamas. That doesn't mean fucking that I support everything Hamas does. It's none of my fucking business. It's not up to me to dictate or to tell the Palestinian people how they should fucking fight for their liberation against a fascist state. It's not up to me. It's up to them. It's up to them to solve the problems. You want something done about Hamas? You fucking support BDS. You fucking... That's how you could do something about Hamas. You don't fucking do it by dictating colonized people who are fighting for their survival on how they should fight against a fascist government. I'm sorry. That really makes me angry. Do you got anything to add to that?
I mean, wasn't it Israel that was the one promoting Hamas to begin with prior to like the elections in, what was it, 2006 or whatever?
Yes, it was.
There was like some leaked documents or something like that, and it's like, yeah, they wanted to create Hamas, so then they could be like, oh, here's this boogeyman that we can bring up every few years or so, and you know, it's the same game that they do all the time. Find like certain groups that you can just demonize the entire population as. So, I mean, every country does this to a certain extent. I mean, it's I mean, fuck me. I remember, what was it, 2014, when the U.S. started really dropping bombs in. They sent a surge of troops and they started bombing Iraq and Syria. Basically, they used justification that everybody was ISIS, so they could just kill men, women, children, turn Mosul and Raqqa into fucking Berlin 1945. It's just these people, they don't give a shit about human life. I can tell you that much. And that's something you will never hear somebody like Caleb bring up. Like the actual dead from all these wars. He doesn't give a shit. He only cares about imperial management and safe face saving.
I agree. I mean, it's like, if he truly was an anti-imperialist, why is he silent about China and Russia's support of Israel? Why is he silent? And no, I will not bring this up, because we're supposed to be fucking anti-imperialists, right? Right?
Yeah.
Then why the fuck are so-called communists supporting a fucking countries that support a literal fucking genocide against the Palestinian people? You mean...
Well, he also supports sanctions on DPRK, and DPRK, Cuba, and a large section of the Muslim world. That's the only countries on earth that do not recognize the state of Israel. Straight up.
Oh, but wait, Caleb Maupin wrote a book against Israel that you can't find anymore. So he is against Israel, right? I don't know. Like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that's why Le Pen is so anti-Israel. Oh wait. Yeah, don't look up Caleb's position on Le Pen.
Oh, don't look up Caleb's position, because it feels like every time he speaks about fucking Jews, he always likes dog whistles.
Yep.
Like, he literally hates Jews. I mean, I'm not saying that because I hate Caleb Maupin. I'm just saying that because it's a fact.
I mean, I say it because I hate Caleb Maupin, but it's also a fact too. And what's it? And then you have people like Keaton Mansfield, who is a complete and utter fucking hypocrite, a transphobe, but then he goes around and sleeps with a transgender prostitute or something like that in the CPI. It's just disgusting how hypocritical and really cultish these people are. I think like they're trying. I think Keaton Mansfield wants to build up his own Jim Jones People's Temple movement.
If you ask me, I think he's a Fed, but I can't prove that.
Well, there was some speculation about Jim Jones himself and his connections with the government, but that's a whole different. That's a kettle of fish right there.
No, I actually think he's a Fed. I mean, it's very suspicious.
It is very suspicious, and I wouldn't put him past it. I mean, the guy comes from a wealthy family. I think I definitely think he is definitely trying to push a I think he wants to build up paramilitary out of the John Brown volunteers and turn them into either his own Jim Jones movement or the SA, basically.
Okay, let's be real. Let's assume that they're not that he's not a Fed for a second. Let's just assume. Let's just say he isn't. Just to be charitable. Let's just say he's not. I find it very. I just don't. And I'm just gonna say this. Even though I don't really like the Yankee Tanky, I do feel somewhat bad for him because Caleb Maupin threw him under the bus.
Yeah.
Even though he's a huge supporter of his, possibly one of his biggest supporters, and he seems to be genuine about wanting to make things better for the American people.
Yeah, I don't like the guy either. Every time I see him on Twitter replying to Jason, I find him extremely annoying. But Caleb can't deny that Yankee Tanky, because Caleb has cited him very specifically, and I know this for a fact. He is the guy that created the John Brown Volunteers for the CPI USA.
It goes to show you that Caleb Maupin is sociopathic. I mean, if he's really like the very fact that this guy pretty much sold probably a lot of his shit and moved to New York, one of the most expensive states to live in the country and cities, only for him to be thrown under the bus by Caleb Maupin. It just goes to show you that Caleb Maupin does not value loyalty. He really doesn't. If he's willing to throw under the bus one of his most loyal people in favor of Karen Mansfield, who I don't think he fucking is loyal to Caleb Maupin at all.
Yeah.
I really don't think he's only loyal to himself. I mean, the CPI,
he's trying to build himself. He's trying to build himself up to be this huge, great figure. He wants to become like the new Huey Long or something like that, or the new Jim Jones. He styles himself after Jim Jones. And like it's basically a cult within the cult itself. So
It's-
the CPI is a cult, and then you have Keaton Mansfield building his own inner cult.
The CPI is an organization of narcissists.
Yeah.
It really is. It's not, I'm not just saying that because I'm reaching. There really is a lot of narcissism in the CPI.
Yeah.
Like those who don't share the narcissistic qualities of Caleb Maupin don't last in his organization.
Yeah, and we already saw how he compares himself to people like Henry Wallace, MLK, and was it Huey Newton or
It was Fred Hampton.
Fred Hampton? Mixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's what's it him and Mansfield, that they're running their organization as a dictatorship, even though it's supposed to be based on so-called democratic accountability. It's nothing more than Caleb's own ego trip.
I don't think Yankee Takey's watching this, but if you are, I may have some issues with you, but I don't think what happened to you deserved what happened. I don't believe you deserve that. I think you deserve much better than being treated as a sacrificial pawn to Caleb Maupin. I think you deserve better than that.
Yeah.
And I'm saying it to someone that doesn't really like the guy, but I could tell the guy was genuine in his video. And in my opinion, I do have compassion for the guy. I don't think he deserved what happened to him. And I just find this really funny. It's like Caleb Maupin treats his most loyal people with such disrespect that this is supposed to be our communist that's going to help free the proletariat in America. This is supposed to be our guy. Like even America, I don't even think fucking really speaks for majority of the American population, because throwing one of a guy like him under the bus, who actually would have actually really helped your organization in the long term, says a lot about you. Because Karen Mansfield, the guy is going to end up destroying on the CPI. He really is.
Or
whether he's a
split it.
Fed or not is to be determined. But people like him are going to destroy the CPI.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if we later find out that he is a Fed, or that he is going to split the CPI and go to Guyana and start having his followers drink Kool-Aid.
Well, regardless how it happens, Caleb will have no one to blame but himself for this, because I'm just gonna say this. Caleb Maupin is an educated idiot.
Yeah.
He thinks he's smarter than he actually is. Like, rather than actually organizing with his organization, Caleb Maupin is just continuing to burn bridges with communists.
Yeah. And he wants to just spend his time on Twitter getting into fights with people. He wants to spend his time bashing Jason Unruh because he's an ultra leftist, and for him, he dare criticized him, which, oh no, that he can't have that. And he it's all just about reading books and just citing stuff like a robot, because that sure as hell shows that you're very you believe in what you're saying. These people are he is the definition of an opportunist, if you ever saw one.
The thing about Caleb Maupin is he used to be one of the most respected like communists out there. Like Luna Oi respected him, Akeem respected him. I'm just listing a few examples.
Yeah.
Like, he even had respect from anarchists. And ever since his split with Jason, he's been doing nothing but starting feuds with fucking people that had no issues with him, originally.
Yeah. Well,
It's like,
that's how. Yeah. That's what the former CPI member said. He's building an anti-Marxist cult that is going to wage war on all other socialists while claiming that they're the real socialist. That sounds very familiar.
If you ask me, and I actually think leftism today was onto something. I think Caleb Maupin, if anything, is the ultra leftist here.
Yeah.
Because what do ultra leftists tend to do? They're opportunists. They start shit with other people. They alienate them. They alienate people from a communist
The masses.
movement.
Yep.
It's like, this is Caleb Maupin is projecting what Jason is on, because that's exactly what Caleb is. How many bridges has he burned with people? Like, he had support from the CPUSA. He had, like, not that long ago, and he burned bridges with them.
And he burned bridges. Like, I mean, he just uses whatever kind of, like, like he's an I can't think of any other word but opportunist. I mean, originally he was a Baathist. He called himself a Baathist. Then he realized how weird it is that a white guy is calling himself a Baathist. So he decided to call himself a 21st century socialist, which is the biggest bullshit ever dreamed up ever. Because he wants to declare himself that he's in the 21st century. We got it, Caleb. And then he goes on to call for socialism with American characteristics. Basically advocating the same shit that China has, but just calling it American.
I just find socialism with American characteristics to be very vague, honestly, because what does it actually mean? To those who don't, I'm talking to those I'm putting myself in the shoes of people who aren't communists. What is it like to the average working person? Socialism with American characteristics. It's vague. It could be anything that you want it to be.
Exactly. So it could be right wing or left wing. It's almost like he's trying to appeal to both sides, and that's how fascists tend to usually do it. And then finally he comes up with this patriotic socialism bullshit that he stole from Alexander Dugin,
who stole from Demarcus
and natives. Yep.
It's like patriotic socialism. Whatever. What's this? I don't even think Caleb Maupin was the one that eventually he wasn't the first one to push it.
Yeah.
That was Jackson Hakel. And I'm being convinced that Caleb I think Caleb Maupin's an idiot. I really do. I don't agree that like I said, an educated idiot, because like he's literally doing the work of feds for them. I mean, my God. My man. Maybe you should stop picking fights with everyone on Twitter and actually focus on your own organization being infiltrated by feds. Because it wouldn't take that much work to infiltrate the CPI. It really wouldn't.
If it isn't already.
It already is. I mean, Jackson Hakel, it's like, that guy's just... I would be shocked if it's found out that he's a Fed. Like, Vosh, let's be real. Okay, everyone's going to say Vosh is a Fed. What about Vosh? In my opinion, I don't think it's important that Vosh is a Fed, to be honest, because his agenda that he's pushing is exactly what the Democrats would want him to push in the first place. So I don't know. I think him being a Fed is questionable, in my opinion. Doesn't mean he isn't popped up by them. Doesn't mean he isn't like being supported by them in some way. That isn't. But I'm just saying that Vosh, I find it a little suspect, because that would mean that fucking Caleb Maupin is a Fed, or Peter Coffin is a Fed, because they're how many views they get. I think judging people how well they do in the algorithm is like not a good argument for them being feds. It's their actions and what they do that makes them a fed or not.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And plus, Caleb himself is one of the biggest Fed jacketers around. He will accuse anybody of being a Fed based off. I know a guy who knew a guy who knew it. That's how the fucking BridgeTube book went. Basically, he didn't cite any sources, and he basically based it off of, well, I knew a guy who knew a guy, and this guy was a Fed, so therefore, thought Slime is a Fed.
It's like, but how do we? I don't think Caleb is a fed. I don't think he is. But how does Caleb know that the people he isn't working with aren't feds? Like Curtin Mansfield.
I don't think he gives a shit. And he obviously thinks, like, well, if they're working for CPI, they clearly must not be feds because it wouldn't really matter. I mean, he himself has literally said, like, it doesn't really matter if Vosh is a fed or not. What matters is their message. And that's like, that's kind of interesting you say that, Caleb. What about your message? Is your message anti-federal government? No.
By his own logic, he's a fed. He is a fed himself, which he isn't, but he is a fed if he's going by his own logic.
Yep.
And let's be okay. Caleb, there is an obvious contradiction amongst the ruling class. That's obvious. We all know this.
Yeah.
But can the CPI present a threat? Yes, they could. And I think the U.S. government is doing whatever they can. I think they're using the CPI if it's infiltrated. If I were a Fed, I would use the CPI to discredit communists everywhere.
Yep. Kind of like what China's doing.
I mean, they're extremely useful for discrediting communists because if people who are interested in communism they see the CPI talking communism but doing fascism, it muddies the waters and makes it confusing for those who are in the middle and not want to actually be political at all because they're afraid of both communists and fascists. Because you already have this narrative being pushed by liberals that communism and fascism are the same side of the same coin.
Yep.
And what better way to reinforce that than to help prop up an organization like the CPI?
Yeah, that's literally doing pushing this red-brown shit and trying to make it so that it's so vague, the political differences between the fascists and communists, to the point where it's just this vague kind of populist. And that word is just straight up. Just you might as well just call yourself a fascist at this point if you call yourself a populist in 2021.
I'm gonna I'll explain for those who don't know what the CPI is. CPI is short for Center of Political Innovation. Center of Political Innovation is what the CPI is for short. Now, is there anything wrong with the name Center of Political Innovation? No. And there's nothing wrong with it. At least the name. But if you look at the people behind it, that's when you start seeing a dark sting about the CPI. Because the CPI on the surface, they don't seem to be such a bad organization. Oh, fighting for working families. By the way, I'm explaining it for those who already know this. I'm explaining to those who don't know. Fighting for working families. Fighting for a government of action. Okay, on the surface, is there anything wrong with that? No. And actually, is there anything wrong with having a government fighting for working families? No, there isn't. There's nothing wrong with having a government representing working families and helping working families. But the CPI doesn't actually support this in practice.
Yep.
Because Karen Mansfield is a Christian extremist and a Western chauvinist. Like the guy, like literally was saying misogynistic shit about women, that they should be fully clothed, even in countries that are culturally conservative, that don't do that.
Yep.
That women, that's they should do it too, even in those countries. Like, he has no respect for people of other cultures. The CPI is a chauvinistic organization that has no respect for non-white Christians. Like, they're essentially pushing Christianity and communism. And for my Christian comrades out there, I have nothing against you if you're a communist and you're a Christian. I have nothing against you. So this doesn't apply to you. But what they're pushing is trying to make it so Jesus would want you to be a communist, even though there's things in the Bible itself that contradicts that. Now, I'm not saying this to be an anti-religious or anything, but I'm just being real. If we're supposed to be materialists and we're religious, we have to be choosing materialism over our religious beliefs every single time, because science, in my opinion, trumps religion. I think that's common sense.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't want my non-belief being pushed on anyone any more than people pushing their beliefs on to me. And the CPI, the kind of movement they're pushing for, is a Christian fundamentalist movement. It's like, how are they any different from the Christian extremists that are basically forcing their religion down everyone's throat? And this thing that they're pushing is also against other interpretations of Christianity. Like, what if you're not a Catholic, or what if you're not a Protestant? What if you're from another form of Christianity? What if you're Jehovah's Witness? I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
Like, do they not have a right to believe in what they believe? Like, what if they don't want that version of Christianity shoved down their throat? It's like, I just think this Jesus was pushing all this shit that communism into Christianity is dangerous, extremely dangerous, because it just makes communists out to be fucking loony, about a bunch of loons. It's like it's bad enough in America that communists are not taken seriously, that communists are essentially they're treated as a meme. I'm just going to say that. There are a bunch of college kids who are like having a temper tantrum because they have to actually work. That's exactly what they act like, the stereotypical straw man of anti-communists, of what communists are. That's what the CPI is.
And I can't really comment too much on Keaton Mansfield's Catholicism and his interpretation of his Catholicism, and the idea that he wants to reform the Catholic Church, whatever that is supposed to mean. But I can tell you, as somebody who was raised a Lutheran, I grew up very much viewing separation of religion and the state as one of the key fundamentals that we should be striving for in our society, and should be taken to the most extreme measures above all else.
It's probably one of the only good things that the founding fathers advocated for. One of the few good things.
And do you know why they advocated for that? As opposed to, because at the time, things like the Catholic Church were basically political organizations. They had control over everything. They were basically the corporations of their time. And they, you can even see it today. They're always constantly talking about the concentration of the political power of the clergy and other such things. And it would basically, like, it's the same thing of us complaining about the power of corporations today. But that's only because of just how secularized our society has become since those times and other such things. But what's it? Yeah. Merging religion with Marxism is
It's a recipe for disaster.
it's a recipe for a disaster. Honestly, your religious views are your religious views, and they should be just that, your private religious views among yourself, not something that you push to create a Jim Jones style cult with a veneer of Marxism underneath it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like, to me, I'm thinking about it as someone who I've told some people I know at my job about Caleb Maupin and his cult, and they were like, "What the hell?" Like these people sound like a cult.
Yeah,
And
it's 100% because he's cutting himself off from other members of society. We already saw that with the Pat Sock split with him and Jason.
you know, if Caleb Maupin had more people like the Yankee Tanky in his organization, the CPI would have a chance of reaching people if they had more people like him. But there aren't more. But majority of the people of that organization aren't Yankee Tanky.
Yeah.
It's like Yankee Tanky. You know, had he been in a leadership position, he could have done something really good for the CPI, and not make it into an organization that's a cult that is anti-communist and attacking every communist out there and every communist movement out there because they don't believe in their whatever weird fucking cult-ish view they have on whatever communism is. Because let's be honest here. The majority of the people that support Caleb Maupin are not communists. Like, it wasn't that long ago. I don't think people seem to remember that Caleb Maupin went on Luna Oi's show not that long ago. When she was still considered part of BreadTube. I don't know if she still is, but it doesn't matter. The very fact that he went on her show, I'm bringing up Be Liberal too, because she went on Ewoks last year. The very fact that he turns on her as soon as the split with Jason happened is very suspect within itself. Because
and he blames Jason and Luna Oi for he basically says, well, Luna Oi just blocked me out of nowhere. No, you lying sack of shit, you piece of shit. You were the one who said a racist thing towards her that she doesn't understand English.
And let's not mention that Luna Oi constantly deals with racism from people like Caleb on Twitter.
About her boyfriend.
Like,
or husband. Or
Vosh attacks her. Caleb's cult attacks her. Same thing with Hawes. Let's be honest, they're the same fucking cult anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, of course she's gonna fucking block Caleb. Why the fuck would she not? Like, she's a descendant of a fucking woman that fucking had her country bombed by your country. You fucking piece of shit.
Millions dead, millions more to this very fucking day, living with the consequences of just every form of chemical, mines, just the fact that Vietnam is still a country after all that is kind of amazing.
It's like, I am defensive of Luna Oi, and here's why. Because there aren't that many women communists out there that are outspoken like she is.
Yep.
There are
especially of color. Yep.
They're educating people. Like, the problem with the communist movement, it's primarily dominated by white men. And she's one of the few ones that aren't. And you know what? Some of you may have issues with her, whether you're a Maoist or you're a third worldist. I don't care. I think she deserves respect because she's one of the few people that are taking works of Ho Chi Minh and translating it into English so people outside of Vietnam can read Ho Chi Minh's works. I don't know if you guys realize this, but Ho Chi Minh, there's a lot of stuff that he said that I think is essential for us to be learning, but a lot of it is not available in English. And she's one of the few people that are doing this. And I think that she deserves respect for actually educating people on, what Marxism is from the perspective of a Vietnamese person. Is Vietnam socialist? No. But does it really matter that they are? No, it doesn't. Because I think people like her deserve respect. And we have sex past pedophile Haas and Vosh. Let's be honest, they're both pedophiles. Yep. Fucking constantly harassing her or attacking her positions every chance they get. It's like, no. It's like if Caleb Maupin is not an anti-imperialist because he literally supports people attacking this woman. And he's the only one. Like Caleb Maupin's scared like a team, like basically lied about him supporting imperialism against Iran. What the fuck are you talking about?
It's speaking to your mic a little bit.
I said supporting imperialism, against Iran. It's like, what the fuck? Are you serious? A fucking doctor that literally puts his life on the line, literally does shit that you're not doing. He actually is a doctor that actually, when he has the time, does YouTube content.
Yeah, and isn't Hakeem the same guy that Vosh laughed about the U.S. bombing his house? And now Caleb is pretty much doing the same exact thing.
It's almost as if Caleb Maupin and BreadTube, or what he calls BreadTube, aren't much different after all. It's almost as if BreadTube is used as a distraction to people not paying attention to Caleb Maupin's genocidal rhetoric against certain sections of people that he doesn't like.
You might be on to something.
Like, I'm just gonna like the fact that he would say that the lumpen they're all just criminal elements is disgusting. Like, I refuse to fucking be lectured by some piece of shit that has never experienced what I've experienced. I'm not a fucking criminal. I'm disabled, and I'm not fucking proud of where I am, but I accept where I am because that's the reality of things. I do what I have to do to survive, just like every other person who are lumpen. We're not fucking a bunch of evil, fucking scheming people that are just reveling in the suffering of working class people. We don't fucking do that. We don't got time for that.
And he also used racist rhetoric as well, like saying gangsta. Like what do you think you're invoking when you say those kinds of things, Caleb?
He's acting like he's acting like fucking Hillary Clinton regarding super predators, or fucking conservatives when they talk about like black on black crime. It's like he's doing the exact same thing. Like everything Caleb Maupin criticizes like the Democrats for, he's doing it himself.
Yep.
It is fucking hilarious. And I don't think Caleb is not aware of it. He is. I'm pretty sure Caleb Maupin deep down knows he's being a hypocrite, but he doesn't give a shit if he's being a hypocrite. Because what matters to him is trying to get a win on his enemies.
Yeah.
Like, because leftism today, even though I have some issues with leftism today, I'm not just going to be put it out there, did make some valid points in his debate with what's that guy's name? I keep forgetting.
Default? Or Flame of Liberation?
Both of them, regarding the lumpen.
Yeah. It's
like he made some great points. And, and basically saying that, we're just a bunch of gangbangers. We have a violent fantasy. Aren't you projecting, Caleb, what you would like to do to the fucking the poor? Like he basically was saying the poor sections of society have no revolutionary potential. Wait, I mean, what? What? Who are the biggest supporters of Mao and fucking the Bolsheviks?
And also like there's also a couple other things. Like there is like he just keeps using Marx and these stupid quotes. Like Marx got it, like he lumped a whole bunch of people together and basically said, "Oh, they're all just lumpen," basically, and something like that. It's like, no, um, there is a specific group of people called the lumpen proletariat, and they are distinct from other sections because lumpen basically just means disenfranchised from society. So, when Caleb does this, he's muddying the waters and trying to make it seem like lumpen are their own class in and of itself.
Yes, he is. And I'm just going to say this. Who gives a shit what Marx says about the lumpen? Who gives a shit? He was wrong. History has proven Marx wrong.
And Marx, yeah, and I don't like, attacking Marx or Engels sometimes because I feel like yeah, they were wrong. But then again, I do find it like, it was a specific time period that he was in. And I could only imagine what it would be like back then. I mean, when he was writing, the 18th Brumaire of Louis Napoleon, you got to understand, parts of France were still semi-feudal up until the 1890s. I'm talking like Western France, rural France. It was still semi-feudal. People seem to think that feudalism just disappeared in France after the 1789 revolution, and that's not quite true. It took literally a decade plus to, a century plus to fully get rid of. And even then, there were still vestiges of feudalism left.
Well, and here's the thing. Marx was something called a human being who was capable of being wrong. I mean, there's certain predictions Marx made that were proven to be wrong.
And he later corrected it himself, actually. Like the idea that revolution would happen in the industrialized countries first, and then later on at the end of his life he was saying, actually maybe it might happen in like Russia or something.
It's like Marx was, and the thing I love it about these people is they manipulate Marx and Stalin, Engels, Lenin, and Mao to support their arguments, even though people like Mao and Lenin and Stalin would fucking hate people like Caleb, considering the kind of people that they went up against were people like Caleb. Like, let's be real, Stalin and Lenin would be considered ultra leftist by Caleb Maupin. Same thing with Mao.
Well, I don't think the term ultra left existed in Lenin or Stalin's time, at least during the 1917 period, but they would be called like anarchist or something like that. Or
well, it just every signaled like thing he says about ultra leftists is he describes himself, because I'm sorry, but Jason's not the one that's going around burning bridges and making enemies out of every communist out there or everyone who would potentially support him.
Yeah.
You have people that don't even like Jason that actually respect him. Can't say the same for Caleb. Not now, anyway.
Yeah, he's acting like if you really want a good analogy of ultra left, because that term is thrown around so much.
It doesn't
mean anything. The only people I would consider ultra left in the first world, and I'm talking the first world here, are these first world Gonzaloists, and like
I fucking can't stand them.
Yeah, they first of all, they're distorting Gonzalo thought, and it's a whole different other can't get into it right now, but basically they're distorting a lot of what Gonzalo wrote and his ideas, and just applying an ultra leftist lens to it in America, to be just like, going around and saying not socialism now, but they chant some other things, and just going around beating people up and other such things, and it's just you're acting like an insane person, basically. And that's no different than Caleb going around with a DPR flag with the Imperial Eagle on it in New York and saying, socialism now, Russia is not our enemy. You're just looking like an insane person.
Like, if you're gonna protest, be anti-war, just keep that shit at home, because this is.
But they're not anti-war. That's the point, though.
He doesn't. Proves that. Okay, of course he's not anti-war, but those who claim they're anti-war but do this. Okay, let's be real. Americans don't give a shit. Honestly, either way, because Americans don't like Russia. Let's be honest. Doesn't mean we should feed on their hatred for Russians or Russia. But I think holding a communist flag and saying Russia's not our enemy, or the DPRK flag, doesn't do anything but make you out to be a bunch of fucking clowns. It's like Caleb Maupin's doing the job of the fucking government for them by basically making people look at communists like they're fucking mentally fucking deranged. I mean, Caleb Maupin, what does he spend most of his time doing? Like typing his name on social media, what people have said about him,
watching videos with 35 views.
It's like,
literally,
how does he have time for all this? That's the question I have. It's like, if he really was serious about organizing the proletariat, serious about building his organization, why doesn't he focus his energy on that? It's
because
like Caleb Maupin he acts like a Twitter communist. I'm not even joking when I say that. He acts like a Twitter communist. This is what Twitter communists do. But unfortunately, he's a Twitter communist with an organization.
Which has its own paramilitary wing. It's fucking who's run by a literal Catholic theocrat. It's just mind-blowing. If you told me this in 2016, that we would be seeing this PATSOC movement with all these theocrats, these Larouchian, these fucking Duganists and other such things, I wouldn't believe you. I never thought it would get this fucking crazy. Ever.
In 2016, I supported Caleb.
Yeah.
I actually, one of the things that drove me to socialism in the first place, was Caleb Maupin's videos about building a better America. Back when I still had hope that we could make this country better.
Yep. I used to have very similar views. Yeah.
Caleb Maupin gave me hope, honestly, that maybe, maybe third worldism isn't the way. Maybe, maybe there's a better way. Maybe we could, but then again, I was proven wrong, because Caleb Maupin, I didn't even know Caleb Maupin had accusations that he was a fascist until I posted a Caleb Maupin video in a group that was anti-Caleb on Facebook.
I didn't know either. I mean, I heard of the accusations, but I never really looked into them, and I just kind of brushed them away, and I tried to ignore it. I feel like that's a lot of things that me and Jason didn't really do. We didn't take these accusations seriously, and we're paying the price for it by not dealing with Caleb.
Well, here's the thing about Caleb Maupin. He takes advantage of the fact that people, kind of form some of attachment towards him, and he takes advantage of that. He preys on that.
Yeah, I think he emotionally manipulates his audience. I think Socialism for All came up with that line of that he's emotionally manipulating in a cult-like fashion. It really is a form of abuse, honestly, what he's doing like this siege mentality. It's us or them. If you're not with Caleb 100%, then get out because you're a synthetic leftist enemy. And
Synthetic left literally has no meaning. It literally has no meaning at this point.
Well, it's just like any of these other insults. You keep saying them long enough, and eventually they just cease to have any meaning. I've seen this happen with so many words nowadays.
It's like, what is a synthetic leftist? Simply disagreeing with Caleb? I had issues with the synthetic left thing even before I had that falling out with B level. I told them that I don't think we should be using the word synthetic left because by Caleb's own words, we're synthetic left for not agreeing with him.
Yeah. And we also apparently we romanticize the lumpen, and we also fetishize the natives, and we want degrowth apparently. Degrowth and depopulation. Didn't you know?
It's funny how that's what fucking they are pushing essentially.
Yeah.
It's like we glorify the lumpen. Okay, in what way do we glorify the lumpen? Just be specific. Because we actually see them as the most revolutionary of all the freaking parts of the working class. Is the problem?
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm being serious though. It's like, okay, okay. I'm not saying that the lumpen, there aren't certain things that aren't problematic because they're not like any class. There's always going to be people in there. They're going to be, a problem. But the lumpen as a whole, you can't just say every single one of the members of the lumpen are fucking, are fucking criminals. Or because that's essentially what Caleb is saying, that we're all criminals.
Yeah, they're all just a bunch of drug addict, woke skulls, gangsters going around just robbing, beating people up, stabbing people. Like he's sounding like a fucking like either Hillary, like a Democrat, Republic, whatever, and both parties have merged together at this point. He sounded like just a straight up fascist. I'll be real.
He is a fascist. He's not hiding it anymore. He just doesn't like being called a fascist.
Well, yeah, because he likes to. Because fascists don't like. They always love to attack other kind of fascists. So, Goebbels, for example, wanted to just. He criticized the fascists in Italy, saying that Mussolini had sold out to the bourgeoisie. So they're trying to distinctify their movement from other movements. It's one of the key pillars of fascism itself. One of the, 14 points or whatever. Fascists will always attack other fascist movements to give their movement a uniqueness to their own.
Yeah, and it's really sickening. I mean, because this rhetoric is dangerous, considering that because there's a lot of disabled people that are communists, and you're basically calling them all criminals. It's like, what reason do they have to even be part of your movement if you're basically saying, oh, you're not worth anything because you're a criminal?
Yeah, he literally said that they're criminalized elements.
It's because there's more criminal elements in the fucking middle class than there is in the fucking lumpen.
I mean, they're hypocrites too, because Keaton Mansfield, he hates the lumpen, he hates LGBT, but then he's going around sleeping with a transgender female prostitute, basically. So he's full of shit. He's a two-faced hypocrite.
Yes, he is. Yeah, but how do you say that? But then again, Caleb knows that not every lumpen person is a criminal, but he uses that. But that's useful to push any like people to be against like the poor in general. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
sound much different from like against the Reaganites and the Thatcherites.
He just wants a buildup of the labor aristocracy. He wants to go back to that 1950s Rockwell utopian idea of what the middle class America was. And he views these lumpen as, and natives in general, as a big threat to his movement because they don't mesh with his vision of America.
He
His
views them
vision
as
of
an obstacle.
Yeah, because he wants to get rid of them because they are not American.
And that's another thing about American fascists. You know, they use the term who is and who isn't a real American. Now,
Yep.
I personally don't care if these people think I'm not a real American because I don't see myself as American. So I don't give a shit. But but then again, if we're going by context, though, it is dangerous considering that this is what the Nazis did to basically say who is and who isn't a real German.
Yep. Yep.
It is,
100%.
it is genocidal language.
And yep, and we have to understand too that patriotism, especially not only in the first world, along with the fact that we're living under a bourgeois state, is only going to be weaponized by fascist elements. You cannot advocate for socialist patriotism in the United States. The concept is ridiculous.
It's childish.
It's like you would have to remove America, everything it is, everything that it stands for, build anew completely, and then you might have some patriotism towards the state that you have built up through sweat and tears and hard work, and cadres.
Agreed. I mean, I don't know. I really, I honestly, I'm just running. I've run out of things to say because we've been doing anti-imperialism, anti-Caleb action, like the disabled struggle, but I feel like all these things are connected because Caleb Maupin is supposed to represent the communist movement in America, and when you have someone like him speaking in such genocidal language, that's because if people like him are saying this shit, then then people like in the mainstream media that are currently attacking trans kids right now as we speak are also thinking this as well.
Yep.
Like all this stuff is connected. It's not separated. And did I go off the topic of the stream, classism against the disabled? No, because I feel like everything is all connected because the disabled, who are the disabled, it depends on who you ask and who you talk to. Because would trans people be considered disabled? But I would say yes, because not because I think gender dysphoria is a disability. It's not. But by society, they're disabled because someone who's trans would be able to say more than I ever could. but from what I've gathered from talking to people, to trans people, at least one of my friends is trans. It is very difficult to get a job if you're trans.
Yep.
It is very difficult to function if you're, because you have to constantly, you either have to hide who you are inside, which causes more mental stress, or risk starving in the street because you can't, because no one will hire you because you're trans. Because America is becoming more openly trans and anti-trans, and I'm saying this that that the trans struggle and the disabled struggle, they're interconnected because it's all form of classism. If you're in the middle class and you're trans, it's not going to affect you if you're lumpen, because a lot of trans people are lumpen.
Yep.
It's almost as if all this stuff is connected, and that's another reason Caleb Maupin hates the lumpen as much as he does, because a lot of the bigotry that he holds against non-whites, LGBTQ, it's almost as if they're all part of a class that he considers to be a criminal element.
And he uses attacks on the lumpen in order to attack these particular groups. He obviously can't go out there and say, "Oh, I just hate all these blacks and natives and Jews and transgender people." No, he's got to use these either use code word dog whistles, or he'll have on a guest and he'll just kind of agree with them as they say all these kinds of horrible, bigoted things.
Yes.
And I think that this is a good way to tie it in and wrap it up.
Well, I've run out of things to say, so my final thoughts are: we're not criminals, and that should be simple. I've said this multiple times. We're not a criminal element. Not all of us are. Disabled people, I don't care how much you hate us, Caleb. We're not fucking criminals. If you actually think we're criminals, you are a scumbag. If you actually think the poorest sections of society are a criminal element, and you know what? I'll just say this. How fucking dare you basically dismiss the revolutionary potential of the poorest sectors of society, considering it's the fucking people that make history, not people like you. It was the poorest sections of Russian society that supported the Bolsheviks. It was the poorest sections of society that supported Mao's Red Army. It was the poorest sections of society that supported Kim's Song. It was the poorest fucking sections that supported Ho Chi Minh. Every single instance where, oh yeah, I even forgot Cuba. The poorest sections of the Cuban population supported Castro. It's like every single instance there's revolution. It's the poorest sections of the people that supported them. So you may look at the lumpen and the fucking poor people as a whole as scum, but we're the ones that actually have made history, not you. Without us, there would have been no revolution in Russia, China, Cuba, Vietnam, etc.
Yep. And while I wouldn't consider myself lumpen, although I would classify, I'd put a caveat. I wouldn't consider myself lumpen now. However, as somebody who grew up with acute Asperger's and autism, I can tell you, growing up in elementary to high school for me was basically hell for, I'd say, a good percentage of the time there. I was ostracized. I didn't want to fit in because I viewed society. Got to keep in mind too, I grew up during the Bush administration, 2003 through 2010. So I was growing up around the Bush administration as the Iraq War was raging. Katrina was happening, and No Child Left Behind. I view Bush as an illegitimate president. I didn't want to fit in with this society because America. I didn't like this country. I didn't want to be part of this country because of what it was doing overseas, and I viewed this country as backwards, reactionary, and most people. I didn't want to have that many friends, so that's why for me, the rejects in school were my friends. I didn't want to be on the popular kids school table. I wanted to be the loner, the quiet one. Um, Different, a little bit different now because I am a labor aristocrat and I am not poor by any such means. I have family that I can rely on and other things, but I do view myself, because of that childhood background and because of my disabilities, in the same light as somebody like um, Engels or Marx or Lenin or Che Guevara, who um, realize that they need to engage in class suicide by supporting the most revolutionary elements in society.
And the thing I like to add to that, personally, is the very fact that Caleb says the middle class romanticized the lumpen is so fucking laughable, because he was okay. Leftism today is not fucking middle class, you dumb fuck. Neither is Trav. Neither is Jason. Neither is me. In fact, most of everybody on MRM, with the exception of the Anglo States, we're fucking poor as shit.
Yeah.
None of us are fucking middle class.
And even then, I'm still like lower aristocratic. I don't make that much money. I mean, if it wasn't for family investments and other such things, I don't know where I'd be right now, honestly.
And that's the thing with Caleb Maupin. Like everything he says is self-projection. When he says, "Oh, like the people, these people want to make everyone poor," it's like, no, that's a stupid argument. No one is fucking saying we fucking make everyone poor, Caleb. No one is saying we advocates for fucking, we should stop fucking, with our growth. We just need to fucking slow the fuck down and not destroy the only fucking planet we have to fucking live on.
His insane concept of mining asteroids.
It's like, that's not a concept that's insane, but the problem is we shouldn't be considering that right now, considering we're on the verge of ecological collapse, and we're still, it's like, this Malthusian bullshit about, let's just produce more just for the sake of more. Majority of the food that Americans consume never fucking get eaten.
Yep. We have way more houses than there are homeless. We already have overabundance.
Yet fucking people are getting poorer in spite of that. It's like, we don't need to overproduce shit. What we need is to slow down with the production and actually focus on raising the standard of living for the whole population, not certain sections of the population. If anything, you're the one who wants to keep the people poor. Like, there's nothing about the third world. Okay, how is Americans' living standards going to continue to go up in your fucking ideal world? Oh, I know how that's going to happen. The exploitation of people in the third world. That's what's going to happen. And who's to say that North Korea wouldn't be one of those people? Because people don't seem to forget, North Korea is sitting on fucking a gold mine, not a gold mine, but I'm just using that, as a reference. They're sitting on rich minerals.
Trillions dollars worth.
Yes.
And keep in mind too, the Trump administration tried to do a very sneaky kind of way of trying to open North Korea up to market reforms that Caleb supports, by the way. So Caleb is literally on the same side as the Trump administration in trying to coup and establish a puppet regime in North Korea. Um, one of the few times where the Democrats were actually on the right side for once in a blue moon by not supporting any kind of quote unquote peace talks. Because peace talks for the US basically just means we're going to open your country up and we're going to slaughter your leader and we're going to wreck your country. Just ask Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, any other country we've destroyed over the last couple decades.
Well, here's the thing. Unfortunately for the Trump administration, Kim Jong-un isn't a fucking idiot. He's not an idiot.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. This nuclear the nuclear weapons they have, it isn't just a deterrent against for America, it's also China.
Yep. Because China and Russia have sanctions on the DPRK. And Caleb himself has admitted he supports those sanctions.
And I have nothing. I'm just gonna say this and to end the stream. You're never gonna stop people talking about you, Caleb. You're not gonna stop people exposing you for being the fascist that you are, the classist that you are, because we have receipts. We have your own fucking words to prove that you're a lying cunt that doesn't care about workers. You actually hate workers. You hate the poor. You hate the disabled. You hate trans people. You hate black and indigenous people. You're no friend of anybody but the white middle class. And fuck you, Caleb. I'm not a criminal, and neither are the people who are like me who are disabled. Fuck you. And for everyone else, power to the people, power to the proletariat, down with fascism, down with fake socialism.
Red salute.